Hello, everybody. It's that time. It's another episode of the return of the never-ending return of By the Numbers Returns. I'm your host, Richard Lewis. Joining me as he always does, the esports historian, Duncan Thorin Shields, named after a character from The Hobbit that you seem to have missed the point of, because he's not a good guy, is he really? The more you think about it.
Depends. In some ways, again, I'd just say the one thing we don't know from Tolkien's stories is, unlike George R.R. Martin, we have no idea what, the narrator's bias could be. For all we know, it's an unreliable narrator. Tell you
That's
what,
a good point, yeah.
fucking hobbits write all the fucking history. Well, I was trying to do like winners write history there, whatever.
Yeah.
Like the winners
No,
do, they do.
Yeah, that is true, actually, because, both of the books, the main books, are written by hobbits, aren't they?
Exactly.
No one's picked up on that.
Exactly. They're writing fucking good reviews of themselves, aren't they?
I'm starting to doubt whether Samwise beat that big spider now. How would you know the truth?
Exactly.
We'll come back to this. We'll say that for the Lord of the Rings podcast we're starting. Me, Thorin, Monty, One Ring to rule them all, coming soon to Twitch. But for now, let's do a shout out to the sponsors, shall we? Obviously, we've got a VPN sponsor. That's NordVPN. They're great. Wonderful sponsor to have. Been with us a long time now. Get yourself a VPN. I've seen loads of people, messaging me and saying how good it's been. And it was a very good pickup. You get 74% off. Go to nordvpn.com/RLS. And of course, SteelSeries. That's the gear I'm using. Headset, mouse, keyboard, the Works mouse mat. They're great. And now I don't even know if they're here next month. So this might be your last opportunity. I don't even know yet. I haven't had time to look into it. But yes, you can get 10% off still as of today. If you go to the store in the link in the Nightbot or on the panel, use my name with no space, Richard Lewis, 10% off anything in the store. So if you're thinking about making a purchase, they make great stuff. Make sure you go and do it. So, Duncan, what's going to dominate the proceedings, obviously, is going to be IEM Fall. It's all over. It's in the books. I will let you pick. Do you want to talk about Europe or North America first?
Well, here's the thing. Obviously, I would be remiss to avoid us talking about the Counterstrike, because we do a lot of that on this show, and I know it's the most popular part of the show. But all I'm going to say is this.
Yeah, what's up?
Dude, there are some elements to this, like obviously just BTN fodder all day, like the fucking CSPPA thing where they're just cool with the games being past midnight. Like fucking, what was the other one? Essentially, by the way, the maddest of all is, how are you going to, as we've always pointed out, set the precedent that if it's even possible, you might have heard that an analyst might have heard some of the comms. How about if ESL just transmitted openly while you're playing the game? Like, probably do a bunch of like low rushes after that. And guys, anyway, don't tell the other team. You know what I mean? Like, these are guys from CSPPA, think it through. Like, if you set the precedent here and then someone does something way worse, you can't just go, yeah, but ESL did pay us and that, didn't they? Like, that's it. You sound corrupt if that happens, don't you? I was just wondering what you thought of that, because I know obviously there's so many results, it was easy to get washed away, you know?
Yeah, I mean, look, I made a checklist of things to talk about. Because, look, obviously what's also happened between the shows is we've been announced for the major.
Yes.
And so this puts me in a difficult position. And that is that I've got loads of stuff I really want to say.
Right.
But I think it's imperative I don't say some of it, because I just want
the major.
Oh, and then straight fire, burn all the bridges,
exactly.
esports, be damned. Yeah, sure. But because I just want it to be good. And I don't want people focusing on negatives. I even had this conversation with Sam. He can verify this. I'm not lying. I said I'm going to try and not get into stupid arguments. So, like, no drama before the major is my rule. That's my mantra. I'm trying to stick to it, Sam. But, Lord, they're testing me. They are testing me, the morons. So, man, there's just so much to go over. And I'm trying to carefully... It's like a... game of Kaplunk. I won't use Jenga. It's overused. Kaplunk, I'm pretty sure, came first.
Better game, to be fair.
Yeah, I think so in many ways, yeah. So, right, let's talk about this thing. So this is the story that during the broadcast, my understanding was, because I only caught this peripherally, basically, a team's comms, I don't even remember which team it was.
Sense.
Oh, it was Ents.
It's when they were playing G2, and I think, off the top of my head, I think it was like they were sort of saying what they were going to do on the third map, which is G2. And basically, the problem was, in that scenario, obviously, if anyone from G2 was listening, they could have just said, by the way, on the stream, they just said, like, again, no one implied they did. Again, it's just a possibility that they could have sort of
Yeah, and so obviously, like, we've had this problem many times, right? And I understand there is a compelling aspect to getting the content of players' comms and presenting them publicly for us to gain some insight into the process, right? Which is fantastic. We did it at E-League. It's nothing new. It's not that I've never worked on a broadcast that's done it. But let me tell you a little bit about how we did do it at E-League. And I made sure, because I was very cagey. I told everyone at E-League, if we do this, do understand we can never go live to comms, especially on a live American TV broadcast. Because if we happen to zip in just at the time a player is something unpalatable to an American ear, let's say, we're going to catch all the flack for that. That player's potentially going to lose their job. We're going to be blamed. If they lose sponsors as a business or anything, depending on how bad they've said, we've set off the whole catastrophic chain of events. So if we're going to do it, it's got to be, we do it, we listen, we get someone from the team to listen back to what we do, approve it, then we package it, and then we put it out publicly. And my understanding from knowing a little bit about NFL broadcasts and stuff, they do that for the NFL, where, they'll have a player mic'd up. In fact, I think in the NFL, you have to agree to appear on something like 8 mic'd up sessions per league, or 12, or whatever it is, as per the NFL agreement. And when they mic up a player, they record everything that player says. Now, the NFL, there's microphones everywhere anyway. They use it for the purposes of investigating claims of unsportsmanlike conduct, racism, people cheating, like gaming tactics, lip reading, whatever it is. So in NFL stadiums, mic'd up to fuck. And this was proven with, Myles Garrett when he hit that chap, that young quarterback, over the head with his helmet, and then said he did it because he said something racist. And the NFL were able to pull all the tapes and look and see that Myles Garrett, there was no evidence that Myles Garrett was telling the truth. So the NFL seems to have a handle on it. And I've never seen anything come out from the NFL that's bad. And equally, they never dip in live.
Yes.
And so the problem I've got is when we try to do it in esports, seems to be that our process fucking sucks. And it's a dangerous process. Because, sure, maybe we shouldn't worry about, maybe players just shouldn't say bad things. Maybe they shouldn't swear during a game. Maybe you want to enforce a rugby-like standard, right? Where, I've been yellow carded for calling someone a cunt on a rugby field, if you can believe that.
It's like one of the lowest of your concerns on a rugby field. People are stamping on each other's balls, fucking headbutting each other. He said cunt.
Yeah. He just gouged my mate's eye, yeah.
And also, it's a game which is very well played by fucking Australians. It feels like you haven't thought that.
I know. And Australia were disqualified for 1,000 cunts in the first 10 minutes.
I know.
So anyway, maybe you can think that, but this is about competitive integrity. Richard's favorite buzzwords. He mentions it every episode of BTN, and yet still nobody cares. So the problem is there. Obviously, yeah, there is absolutely no argument that if a ringer from G2 or a manager, or even in the room themselves, because I'm sick of just, hey, we've got an entourage.
No.
That just happens now in the online era. Entourages are allowed. Like, what is this fucking Def Jam? Like, why is there 500 people in a room when a team are playing? Whatever. Any one of those people might have been able to relay that information in a player break to the players, or at a key time. And I'm not saying they did, and I'm not even saying it would be easy to do that without being detected. But that possibility existed. And as you rightly point out, the CSPPA made players strike on it being a potential possibility. Yes. And here it happened. Crickets. So, your thoughts?
Yeah, and the big problem for me overall is, like, look, I'll briefly address the thing you were saying. Yeah, basically the problem is you have to be so careful with how you edit and publish these private comms that effectively they don't work for what in that case it sounds like E-League wanted, which is they wanted essentially to be able to cut in and they hoped they'd hear something interesting like, oh, maybe next time try something, and then it would build the storyline. But as you're saying, you need so much approval and you do have to go through it with a fine-tooth comb that, like, basically it needs to be shoulder content. It needs to be some separate thing. Or in the case of what we were doing at Blast when I was there, it's the idea that's just to inform the analysts. Like, in theory, they're not going to, I know they actually had their own incident where they showed one little clip that someone didn't like,
Yep.
but in theory, it's, in fact, that was the one I think where it was called Zero in Phase, and he was saying, like, we'll do something, I can't remember, it was like, again, it was like whatever the third map was going to be, he made some comment and they stupidly put out the broadcast. So in general, I just like the idea it was for informing them. Now, I will say, when I actually did one of those Flashpoint Q&As, and Golden from Fnatic basically just disagreed and said, I just don't like the idea at all that you get the comms. Like, listen, I tried making arguments to him, like, look, it's not really your choice, mate. You get paid to play the game. This is a broadcast. We have to make it entertaining. I made all those arguments, but on some level, one reason I did agree with him is because essentially you just have to actually trust what you're saying, that there are protocols and a process in place. And in theory, it's ironclad. Nothing can get out. Because I will say, even at Blast, where in general, it wasn't as though anyone just had access. Like, I remember a moment where, I won't say who, but I remember a moment where a coach that I know just walked into like the little cabin that like me and Sponge were listening to the comms on. I had to say, get the fuck out. Like, we're literally listening to their comms right now. Like, if you hear anything, that's literally a violation of God. And so the guy had to be, oh, sorry, I thought you were just in here, like, talking about the game or watching the match or sort of. So it made me realize how easy it would be for there even be leaks all over the place, even accidentally, like unintentionally, someone could hear something that could affect what happened in the match. So it is hard. I'm not saying it's easy. It's just that when I look at the faux pas, like the Cold 0-1, this one, mate, this is one of those times I get really bored of the ESL bias on Reddit. Mate, they'll defend to the death shit that has no defense. Like, those people just going, but how could the guy editing it know if really they were talking about the next map? It doesn't matter, mate. At that point, you're just literally being a contrarian. Like, you're going to find some way to defend. In the same way as on the other issue, playing games past midnight. By the way, that continued to happen. Like, there was a game the next day where it finished at almost 2 a.m. That was the one for, like, I think off the top of my head, it was the quarterfinal or something. Maybe the semi-finals. I forget. I think it was quarters, because obviously the G2N's game went, like, OT in the third map or whatever. So in this scenario, it's like, how can people defend these angles? I understand that, listen, there might be circumstances, like maybe that was a new guy who's in the production thing who didn't know the protocols, he's fucked it up. Could well be, like on the second day, for example, I'm talking about, it wasn't just scheduling. So it was a delay in the game. Like, I know the first game got delayed like an hour and a half or something. Yes, we understand extenuating circumstances exist. But by the way, what's the point in having an agreement in that scenario? That's like saying we'll never play below a certain temperature in the NFL and going, it's Green Bay, isn't it? It's fucking cold. Well, then why make the agreement? You can't even hold yourself to the agreement. So to me, there's all sorts of flaws here. And the problem is, like all CSPPA related discussions, mate, people think we made this angle up. Well, if it's true, then we're manifesting on a fucking level in the universe that, like, the woman from The Secret's going to ask to do a book with us. Because this is mental how many scenarios about CSPPA seem to boil down to a fucking flowchart that goes, have you paid CSPPA to make an agreement with you? If yes, you will get crickets, zero criticism. Have you not paid them? They will go to the ends of the earth to make you look like scum. Like, the flowchart's mental, boys. Have they ever criticised ESL openly? As far as I know, even the issue of games that were late, they just went to privately, dealt with it, and did an agreement, which I assume, again, involved. And shall I ring you up now, Mr. Reichardt? Do you want to pay now or cash or credit? What's it going to be?
Yeah, I mean, look, so, yeah, this is the problem. I'm still, like, in a world where maybe the CSPPA can be repurposed, maybe it can...
They did bring a lot of new people in, to be fair, or whatever it was, late last year, early this year, whatever it was.
You know, I think a lot of people felt that I'm like, oh, the CSPPA is like some evil entity. It's just a massive disappointment and currently not fit for purpose. But the problem is, look, there's another flowchart, Duncan. It's not just about whether or not they get money. It literally is a flowchart that just says, did ESL do it?
True.
You know, I think at this stage, you know, forget the money, because other people have paid them and not had the benefit. Other, like, Zipnix was on the board, right? And yet, when all that talk about burnout, remember, and that was a buzzword for a week, Duncan, do you remember? Remember where if anyone dare question the legitimacy of a player saying burnout, you actually detested the idea of them being mentally healthy and wanted to do them harm in some way. Yeah, I do remember that week. Yeah, when everyone said that about us. Of course, it now transpires a lot of this burnout talk is utter bullshit and stands up to no scrutiny because people were claiming burnout at a time when they were doing a lot less work, and there were more provisions for burnout, and there was no travel. So, okay. But, remember when that was the buzzword, CSPPA was straight there, weren't they? And they were going, oh, yeah, bloody hell, that burnout stuff. Definitely nothing to do with getting a prominent member into a better leveraged position at Astralis and showing that actually the law would be on his side if he decided that he ever wanted to down tools, which we can now look at. Just remember that all of that 10-man roster bullshit was basically Astralis exercising their right to bringing literal scabs for striking workers. And that's all it ever was, guys. It's all it ever was. But you all bought the bullshit, didn't you? Okay, cool. Not me.
By the way, I'll just reiterate again for people who didn't follow back then. As I said at the time, obviously it didn't happen because, as you can tell, they got better deals. But in fact, they're both of the people in question. But there was a world where none of the Astralis players ever play again in an Astralis jersey. And those two players in particular, I heard like at least one of them absolutely could have been out the door and elsewhere. So those are the ones where you never know the near misses, as they say.
Yeah, and listen, I'll also just say, I'll toot my own horn there, and our collective horn, Duncan. I think because no one else was talking about that issue, and no one else was talking about what was going on behind the scenes at Astralis.
The Scots, the one thing they wouldn't fucking copy.
Yeah, right, exactly. The score. We want to find out what's going on at Astralis in this scandal involving Casper Fit. We interviewed Casper Fit, like, fucking get me out, like, you know what I mean? It's mental, innit? So, anyway... I think us drawing attention to that and the report I did about behind the scenes at Astralis and saying how fractious it was. Put it this way, I know when CS goes dead in a year or two, and those boys might have retired, next time I'm in Denmark, they'll all be buying me drinks. I know that. I don't give a, they're gonna come up to me and go, you know what, Rich, like fucking hell, you got us paid with that shit. You helped put pressure on or whatever. They'll never say that publicly. They might not even say it privately at the moment. They're pros like that. But I know there's a world where, I bump into some of those boys and they say, yeah, let's have a drink, eh? Technically, this is your share. Anyway, yeah, the CSPPA basically seems to just now serve the function of what they said about ESIC. And that was ESIC, if you remember. People didn't want to sign up to ESIC because it was essentially kickstarted financially by ESL. And it was their way of dealing with the competitive integrity problem. And everyone said, oh, we can't sign up to ESIC. It's just an ESL shell company. They'll use it for competitor intelligence. I think we can now look at the CSPPA and say, by and large, if you're willing to ignore a company doing the thing your union has already gone on strike over, the potential, like, you may as well just come out and say, like, listen, we're never going to hold ESL accountable for anything. All the agreements are bullshit. And you're right as well. They made a point of saying, right, back channeling, yeah, we really can't have the midnight games anymore. Not because they care about the players or the welfare in that situation. They just don't want to look silly because the agreement's there. That's why they did it. Specifically, that's why they did it. And then ESL said, well, sorry, we've got to have another midnight game. Like, has anyone, like, even asked why the format had to be the way it was? The broadcast had to be the way it was. The times had to be the way they were. Has anyone asked any questions about this?
The first games were starting at like 5 p.m. local time. Yeah. So it's not even as all like, listen, Richard, I'd understand if this was the old days and the game starts at 9 a.m. and you just get all those delays and tech yeah, that can happen to anyone. You're starting at 5 p.m. and finishing past midnight, which is it?
Yeah. And this is what I mean. And basically what it all boils down to, ESL ran the tournament the way they ran the or should I say tournaments. Didn't see CSPP asking, why is ESL hosting all of these tournaments simultaneously? Why can't other tournament providers have a go? Or that would be better for the players, right? No, absolutely not, apparently. The ESL setup was all done to benefit ESL. They didn't give a fuck about player welfare. They didn't give a fuck about competitive integrity. I mean, as we're going to get to. Any world where evil geniuses are going to the major is a disgrace.
That's mental, isn't it?
Going as a legend... I mean, fucking...
I guess belief, doesn't it?
No, but this is what I mean. This is what I mean when I said at the start of the show I don't want to say anything bad about the major. I don't want to diminish it. We need it to be good. Everyone's got to get on the page for this. Like, we might even have to eat the proverbial shit and pretend it's chocolate ice cream. We might have to do that, guys, because Valorant's breathing down our fucking neck. And if we don't have a banger tournament, I mean, just fuck it. We lose. We've lost America. We've lost the Zoomers. We're just going to be that crusty old. We're just going to be Brood War, basically. So, you know, it's got to be good. But I'll tell you what. It ain't good having EG there. It fucking ain't. It certainly ain't good having EG there, predicated on the fact a fucking player slept through a best of one.
That's mental, isn't it? I know.
So we're going to talk about all of that. But like, you know, the bottom line is, it seems to me that ESL basically put their own selfish needs ahead of player welfare, ahead of the major, ahead of everything else.
And cut corners like a motherfucker. I would imagine they saved some costs, you know.
Yeah, and I just, no entities are going to talk about that. No entities are going to talk about that. No journalists are going to write about that. Once again, it comes down to this podcast, like some fucking, you know, I'm starting.
We are the fucking watchers on the wall, aren't we? We're just the Night's Watch. It's like no one fucking respects you, really, but we're necessary on some level, you know.
Because first of all, in the Night's Watch, like, you have to be celibate, and yet in esports, I get fucked every day.
There we go. Okay.
So it's not like that, is it? And also on top of that, it's like, you know, surely someone else needs to talk about these things.
I know.
Surely, just one person. After the ESL stuff with, you know, EG getting through Sleeping Player, all the final standings, I went and looked around the web, you know, the interwebs. And I was looking at all the articles coming out, and it's like, finally, we've got a major. These are the teams. Hey, CSGO viewers guide to the major. Nothing's been announced yet. Wicked viewers guide. Like, fucking hell, you're ahead of me. I'm working the cunt. So
it's like that joke, though. Like, all we had to do, it's obvious, is I just had to work this event, and then maybe even I have a choice in some of these things. Then it would have been all over the internet. That's just how it works, I've learned. So sadly, I should have took it on the chin and just worked with the SL guys. Then they would have torn it apart. Everyone on it.
I've seen an article, you know, about all the listing all the violations of the CSPPA agreement, ESL done. This is a slam dunk for you guys. Like, I'm literally spending my time going through that fucking Twitch leak. Page by page, you know, and going through all the PDFs and all, and that's 125 gigabytes a day, trying to figure out what all. I've seen no journalists write about that either, by the way. No one get me. Everyone's just asleep at the motherfucking wheel. Like, we're just like, yeah, it's mental. So anyway, the bottom line is, I think that, like, and we'll get to this bit now, and then we'll talk about the results. I think there is something very wrong with what's going on for this major, in the sense that it seems like people are just sort of willing it to happen, to make it happen, to get it over with. And that is not the attitude I want to carry into a $2 million CSGO tournament. It's not just any major, guys. It's the biggest major, right? It's the one with the biggest prize money. It's the return to LAN. It's the return to, you know, stadium audiences. This should all be super important. And then let's get to the next bit. ESL have treated the qualifiers for a business rival with such flippancy that ultimately we've had a diminished experience at the major. There's no getting away from that, and we'll go through some of the individual examples when we talk about the results and the narratives. What is this nonsense that is now circulating that there are not going to be any signatures for the players to buy in the game? That cannot be real.
It's not mental.
But I mean, so for the South American RMR, players are saying they had to give over their signatures, right? In Europe, all the team owners I've talked to and seen post about it have said no one's been asked. I reached out to NA teams. No one's been asked. Players have said for previous majors, we would be asked by now, because usually they would say you have to get it like 28 days before or whatever it was so they can put it in the game because you've got to go through a process of approval for your signature.
I think it was Pimp who on a talk show even said that actually in the modern day, it gives actually meaning to like the qualifier, for example, because he said if you're like the legend signature, it's like you get way more than if you're like the first one or whatever. So actually in theory, it also should have been like a defining factor of why you battle to get the 7th place or whatever the fuck in those stupid ass games that don't matter, It should have actually been like a motivating factor. But if it's not going to happen at all, mate, if people don't, like, the traditional thing they do in CSGO where we just go, oh, but look at bloody daughter because that's like the favorite child. This would be utterly egregious because already the signatures, like, I think don't go anywhere close to the kind of like fucking hundreds of millions they seem to raise in daughter. But the idea that they have that and then we have no signature, like, what are we doing here then? Like, are you putting 20 more mil in the prize pool? What are we doing?
So once again, there's a grenade in the room and I'll jump on it. This is a disgrace. This is a disgrace. Like, I don't, like, seriously, if Valve get pissed off about this being pointed out to the point where they want to do an intervention and say, Richard, you can't have your cake and eat it. You can't, like, fuck it then, I'll say it. Let me explain why it's important, right? It's because we've got so many first-timers at this major, so many new teams, and because of the fucked up, janky qualification system, they might never get to another major again. I'm sure we're going to fucking rework the RMR system next year because it's a fucking disgrace the way it's operated this year. I mean, it's a literal joke. We were this close to having a team from CIS just cheat their way in and get all the financial benefits of it, right? So we got to rework it, and we got to stop nobody teams getting through and teams that clearly don't deserve it. And we've got to reassess what's going on with North America. There's so much to fix. But regardless of that, for now, why, in terms of equality and what we want in the scene, why are those players going to be denied a financial windfall that every other attendee at a CSGO major has received? That is unacceptable by any standard. And so, again, where are you, CSPPA? Don't want to take on Daddy Valve. Not got the nuts for that. Because those players are entitled to that money. And I know what's going to happen, Duncan, because I fucking understand the way games devs think. They're going to try and kill it with silence for now. And then the roaring noise of people who are disgruntled about it's going to rise to a crescendo. And then it's going to be, it's reflected in the prize pool, the additional money for the prize pool. But that is not why we have a $2 million prize pool, is it? We have a $2 million prize pool because it's the first fucking major since forever. It was never about... So I don't care if it's a rush job. I don't care if you have to use players' same signatures from before, if they've attended before, and prioritize getting these new kids in the game. You cannot deny them that paycheck. That is outrageous. It's not good enough. And nobody should be all right with that. I'm not.
Sure. Especially because to me, the other thing about it is it's a way where, look, as much as I'm more about merit, so I would rather you just made the prize pool enormous and then, see who can fucking win the money. But I also do like the angle that, like, it rewards, for example, players who've marketed themselves well. If you've built up a bit of hype about yourself or you're an interesting character, you can get paid based on that almost directly in a sense. So I've always thought that was a cool angle. Like, I'm sure people like Pasha just made way more than they would have if they just never said anything and played the game,
Yeah, of course. But, like, it's like you say as well, though, look, I know TI has been far from fucking perfect so far, but they've even it's just not even funny, Duncan, mate. I mean, for years, right? And I've even said this to Valve for years. I've gone, yeah, it's really overplayed, this myth that you preferentially treat Dota way better than any other game in your portfolio. Man, how the fuck can I say that with a straight face? How could I? Right? Look at the things they've acquiesced to. Talent getting money from attending, getting their signatures in the game, after, them using all of their voice lines in the chat wheels. Something we have specifically been told repeatedly cannot happen in CSGO because, quote, when you go to a TI, it's Valve essentially picking you, even though I don't even know if that's true or not. But when you work a major for a third-party tournament operator, they're choosing you, so therefore Valve might not co-sign you working it. Now, listen, I know by pointing this out, obviously, I'm potentially cutting myself off at the motherfucking knees, aren't I? Because I doubt many people would want me. Because host Richard is different, a podcast Richard is different, a journalist Richard. Sure. People don't understand you have to wear many hats. But the thing that's consistent throughout is just the truth. Like, when I'm a host, I tell the truth about the games and the truth is relevant to the broadcast. When I'm on a podcast, I speak the truth about what we need to talk about and the big issues and the elephants in the room. And obviously, when I work as a journalist, it must be truth above all, no matter how uncomfortable or damaging it is to hear it. So it's insane. And then on top of that, remember all the big brouhaha we had about core streaming? So you could co-stream in Dota, even if it overlapped with just another tournament operators event.
It made no sense to allow it, actually, in that one. They almost just did that as if to say, we really do value everything above our partner at the TO.
And then, and then we were doing it in CSGO to a far lesser detriment. As I said, the No Majors Club gets about 4,000, 5,000 viewers. We have all guests on, we rotate it out. We were essentially told, the tournament operators own the intellectual property to CSGO temporarily for that moment for the purposes of you not being able to co-stream. And then they went and applied a similar but different standard to Dota after that and said you can do it because Dota should be for everybody, not like CSGO majors.
I know.
But you have to have a 15-minute delay and it can't be commercial in any way, shape or form. And by that, they don't mean a Twitch stream, which is commercial. This is commercial. What we're doing right now, this is commercial. I make money off it. Someone's going to sub in the chat. If you've got a Twitch Prime, it's a little purple crown on your screen. Now is the time to press it. We all make money off this as we're doing it, right? But it's not specifically commercial in the sense that, I'm not plugging a sponsor. Well, I am actually on this show now, but, in the past we haven't and stuff like that. And that's what they don't want you to do. Because then you clash with their sponsor over there. So they give you a 15-minute delay. So obviously it's better to watch the stream. Then for TI, they said, that doesn't count. The 15-minute doesn't count. But it does count in China because that's how they do all their contracts in China. Everyone's exclusively tied to a streaming platform to do core streams and everything else. So then they just come out the other day and they just said, right, fuck it, no delays, everyone can stream TI. So back to the original state of play. Meanwhile, over in Dota, any TO wants to be vindictive, can not only stop you core streaming a game that is in their client. Yeah, sorry, in CSGO, they can stop you streaming anything that they want to, but they also own the demos from the tournaments.
That's the maddest one of all. They slipped that in there, isn't it?
They could just shut down a YouTube channel that did demo analysis anytime they wanted. So, and here we are. We can't go into the major without that. There needed to be a statement about the status of stickers a week ago. It's an integral part of the major experience. We don't get a compendium. We don't get autographs for the talent that we like. And whatever. I mean, obviously there's a little bit of selfishness to that because, can you imagine if you were in a fucking game and you could go, here's the thing, and you sold that for fucking $2 a pop, mate. You make a fortune. But yeah.
And I've also wanted, selfishly also for my friends, I obviously want Anders to be in there going hey, go, are you kidding me? So, then he can turn to his kids and go, that's why I was missing half your childhood. There you go. It's
a good roast. I like that. That's a good one. You should have saved that, mate. You should have saved that for the actual official roast.
Wasn't bad, was it?
So, yeah, I hope, I honestly hope, that this is wrong and this is misinformation. Simple, obviously, comes from Narvi, so he always has to do the I know the answer but can't say.
Oh, give me a break.
Simple and Slasher,
I know.
Peas in a pod. But the bottom line is we need an official statement about it. We need an official statement about it.
When you said that, I thought you were exaggerating. That's actually all he said. Essentially, there's no extra value add to the tweet. It's just I know answer but can't tell you. It's I get the fuck out of my face.
Right. Why? Anyway, we've mourned enough. I didn't want to mourn. It's in my nature. I can't help it. Let's talk about IEM4. Let's just knock the North American shit out, right? Because much like the North American scene, there's not much to go over, is there? So, in the end, we had Furia come through and win, which maybe surprised a few people. They're not the real surprise of the group. But let's talk about what happened. Well, actually, first, before we get to the funny one, let's just talk about the sort of overall failure of Extremum. Because I know Extremum, like, they're good lads and they're a good org, and I've talked to them a lot. Worked the RMR, we interviewed all of the boys. I know this is going to be a big disappointment for them, but basically, they put a lot of work in. This is not an inexpensive project. They've spent a lot of money, and in the end, they had a best of 3 series against Evil Geniuses. So you can't even say it sort of comes down to best of 1s for them. Their destiny could have easily been in their hands. If you beat EG, which, by the way, if you're a contender team in NA, you should be able to do. They would have been fine, and they weren't able to do it, and they aren't going to be at the major, and it sort of leaves this huge, question mark about the future of the project, whether or not it'll continue, whether or not they're going to make changes. I don't know if you watched the Extremum Evil Geniuses series.
I did not watch that match.
Right.
I actually just thought Extremum would win it. Believe it or not, I didn't think there's even a chance they lost at all.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, it sort of came down to a problem I've noticed with Extremum in the past, and that is that the maps they think they're good on, they're not good on, really.
Okay.
Nuke is such an Achilles heel for this team. It was throughout all of the RMR, and they pick it. They pick Nuke, and they play teams that aren't even necessarily great on Nuke. I mean, come on, EG on Nuke, whatever. And then they lose, and they put themselves in this difficult position. You know, they played Mirage as well in the second map, and that's the map they beat EG on. But in the end, got beat on Inferno in another map that I think they can play it, but it wasn't particularly kind to them in the RMR either. It was, again, a bit of a coin toss map, although I do feel that from that meta, which is obviously, different now, that was just the case anyway. So yeah, I don't know, man. They really wilted under the pressure. I mean, they didn't even get to double digits in the maps they lost, and they just. I mean, I think a lot of the problem lies with Gratisfaction. I think they've got very competent riflers. I think Jacob and Bentet. You know how I feel about both of those players. I think
good players.
Yeah, I think Azza, as an IGL. Yeah, all right then. I could be won over. I liked him. I think he's got a good temperament. He is sort of becoming a veteran in terms of his smarts and being around the block and stuff. But basically, it comes down to Gratisfaction with the AWP. He's in that mad world where it's like being a goalkeeper in football. If you miss your shots, and make mistakes, people know about it. If you do your job, no one cares. And it's hard to be an AWPer, because you really stand out when you have a bad game. And I mean, to put it in context, on Nuke, he got 7 kills, as an AWPer. I think he had same amount on Inferno or very close to it. So it's like, at the end of the day, I think he's a big problem within the organization. And maybe that's somebody they look to replace, although I don't know who the natural inclination would be. But yeah, lots of problems, I think, for Extremum.
Well, I mean, the problem I have with this entire project, basically, is it was already a bit scoffed when they made it, because it was like Cassard came straight back from Cloud9. Like, well, I'm just going to basically remake 100 Thieves, but without the perennial best player, which is like, well, okay. I mean, that sounds like, some motherfuckers like to ice skate uphill, but okay.
Yeah.
Who are you getting instead? Bentet. Okay, that's not the worst. You know what? There's chances here. As you say, I don't think Bentet's played bad. I think, if anything, actually the team is somewhat similar to the old 100 Thieves. It's just the problem is, they're not that good in the current climate. And if you look, I know a lot of people think, where have they bloody been? We haven't been playing. It's because unfortunately, they essentially only play the RMRs and shitty online cops. Because remember, in the modern day, they're just not going to be in Blast or fucking ESL events typically. So unfortunately, they have essentially, with this whole project, sort of gone all in to get into this major. And as we've sort of alluded to at the outset of this discussion, it ain't supposed to be hard right now to get in the bloody major from NA, because they still treat NA in terms of slots as though it was 4 or 5 years ago, where you could have 2 or 3 NA teams in the top 10 in the world. Basically, what CIS is now, NA was almost becoming the real region that could rival Europe, whereas obviously NA is an absolute shadow of itself. And if anything, it's really now just Brazilian teams feasting on it. It's like we've gone back in time 7 years, boys. Like we did this already after the iBuyPower bans, and we've done this part of the cycle. So unfortunately to me, if Extremum can't get through in these circumstances, sure, some of the like best of ones, of course, they had one against Liquid and they almost fucking beat them, for example. Even so, you put all your eggs in this basket. Like, I'll say that. I think the org is interesting. I've noticed, by the way, they do loads of shoulder content around the team. They seem to really put some effort into
their content plan and ideas are really good. You know, and I think maybe some of the people involved with it even are looking at maybe an editorial site somewhere down the line, perhaps.
Right.
But
it looked legit from what I saw. So again, to me, it all sounds good. It all sounds nice that you got this group of players. I agree with you though. They definitely need a roster move or two. And for me, it's like you have to just call it a failed product at the moment. Like what's the bright spot I'm supposed to look towards, you know? Because the other problem is even when they play well, like they're good, but they're not really good. Even when they play well, they're not some like world beater, you know?
Yeah, and I'll move on just quickly, just to say a little bit. I mean, the biggest flop at this was Extra Salt, but I don't want to belabor the point because I think Extra Salt played exclusively best of ones, and I looked at some of the tiebreakers they did for this. They just played like an OT, like they just played like one overtime as a tiebreaker, like an MR3 overtime. Duncan, you get on the server, you do that, and you go like. Oh, what is this? So
that's just the way they were running it. Yeah,
it's mad, right? So I don't think I've ever seen that in the history of, certainly not in CSGO.
That's almost some like fucking CGS level shit. Isn't it? Like,
well, mate, even CGS played fucking MR9, So yeah, crazy shit. But anyway, so I'm not going to belabor the point, although I think they flopped, and it's a shame because at the RMR they look potentially like a team that could win it. But let's get to it. Right. Let's get
by the way, since we're going to talk about real teams, I'll just throw this out there because no one noticed because who gives a fuck? But whatever, 0-0 Nation, obviously formerly known as No Plano, they obviously gambled their entire year and all those salaries they could have been making the whole time, a measly $10,000 a month. I can't bloody live in LA. Well, the irony is maybe Henny just foresaw inflation. Maybe he's actually fucking super stupid.
It turns out you actually can't live in LA.
He's actually a genius. At the time, seemed like a stupid thing to say. But anyway, they gambled all that. My favourite one is TRK, who actually bought himself out of his contract.
I know.
So he managed to be the only CSGO pro in about 10 years to lose money playing professional Counterstrike. And they have a 6-man lineup, so one person just can't play anyway. And then on top of that, they gambled it all. They go, we have an org. We have an org. Ooh, could be flamenco. Just saying shit you want to be true at that point in time, I think. And then eventually,
could be flamenco.
Eventually you go, finally, the big deal's here. Ever heard of 0-0? No, I haven't. No, I've never heard of that. Who was that? Well, you're going to hear about them soon. Oh, shit, we've filmed the major. The whole thing's just like, could this get any worse? Could this get any worse at all?
I mean, it is worth pointing out that they didn't just fucking bomb in this RMR. They lost every single best of one.
I know.
Right, so let me tell you who they lost to. They got battered by evil geniuses. I don't even think that's out of the realms of possibility. For whatever reason, 0-0 Nation, formerly El Plano, they
No Plano, all Plano. Sorry, it's all Plano.
All Plano, no Plano, El Plano. That's where I pulled that from.
I know. It's got Spanish on it, but whatever. Yeah,
I've got Spanish instead of Portuguese. Whatever. Right, that'll be on the front page of Polygon now. Right. Anyway, then they're playing Godsend. Well, I'll tell you, when I saw I'm going to tell you something that might shock people here. Right, I saw Godsend over at the RMR. And obviously we were up late and with those games because I'm in the UK and Harry and Hugo were doing it too. So we had to sort of decompress afterwards. And we would be talking about the games and stuff. And listen, I've got nothing against KNG. I know people seem to think I do. But I'll tell you a player who really surprised me with his diligence and approach to being an in-game leader. It's Taco. Like, no joke.
Okay.
We were watching. We listened to him in interviews. We were seeing out the comms and the strats he was calling, and it was clear that the RMR had come around a little bit too quick. But mate, they weren't. If you see them, they turn up in these online cups and stuff. They've got like progressively better, and Taco is like now transitioning into like a really good IGL could in the future be the best IGL in Brazil. Like, no joke. Look, and I can say this now because I know Taco doesn't like me very much because when he did,
it's a weird qualifier, but okay, I can now say this because he's like he's fucking.
No, I was just going to say this. It's like it doesn't matter, anymore. He doesn't watch the show anymore. He doesn't follow anything I say or do anymore. But seriously, I mean, like when I saw 0-0 Plano. And Godsent play. Godsent absolutely destroyed him. I mean, it was men against boys. It was fucking ridiculous. And like, it's not that they're not a talented roster. It's just that Taco did a number on him. But what's mad is, remember, these are Taco's tactics, and he's top fragging in these games. Taco was fragging out on some maps. It was mental. And 0-0 Nation, they have this weird mindset. They get up for the big games usually. So when Furia came along, that was actually really close. They could have won that. But then they lose to Triumph, and then they lose to Team One. At this point, like, put it this way, I know the thought process for this org was get them in, get them to the major, get the sticker money, reap all the benefits. They've basically done a budget 100 Thieves move.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But unfortunately, they didn't get that 100 Thieves thing. They got this. And it's a disaster, the whole project, from start to finish. Ever since these guys left MIBR, it's basically... I know what the documentary has to be about Brazilian CS. Obviously, people will go, oh, yeah, what about that woman, Luminosity and SK, and the rise and fallen, and how he carved out Scene single-handedly? Yeah, that'd be cool. Never be as interesting or compelling as how this group of players, KNG and those guys, how they fucked up their careers.
They just played God with not only their careers, but like half a dozen bloody orgs and teams. Like, think about just KNG alone, like fucking Immortals, 100 Thieves, MIBR, Henny and Lucas. Mate, Henny even had the audacity to actually get good for a while, then just fucking leave Fury behind. Right? It's like, mate, you guys are mental. Do you just... What's mad is they're not totally evil. They're just some sort of fucked up trickster characters that just come along and fuck with whatever you're doing. But sometimes for good, sometimes for ill,
So, I mean, just while we segue there, I'll say Godsent, they made it to the final and obviously got themselves to the major as a result of that, because they hadn't done too well prior to it. This is a topic I'll say for the European bit. Played a best of 5 final, which I thought ESL were up to changing pointless best of 5.
That makes me wonder how much fucking pull Na'Vi has. Because if people don't know, here's the element that I think's actually lurking behind that. Because obviously, as you're alluding to, apparently nobody wanted a best of 5 final. So Europe, people like Device, a GOAT content, he can't get it. People like NIP, big org, they can't get it. But bizarrely, that one org, Rich, that basically dominates all the ES charts for the viewing matches. Like, if they do a CSM, they'll just be there 4 Na'Vi games. It's almost like they can play God with it. It's only them, though, I've noticed. It's weird how that works, isn't it?
Yeah, weird how that works. We'll come to that over the Device storyline. And I'm going to be grinning from ear to ear when we get to Europe, because I've done it again. Another bold prediction true. But let's talk about the funny one. Evil Geniuses and, of course, the fucking Triumph nonsense. So, essentially, EG... And by the way, I know people have laughed and joked this off, and I'm going to give you a demonstration of how sometimes 2 people can be right and occupy opposite sides of an argument based on the reaction to this online. But basically, EG are, as we know, a bit of a nightmare team at the moment. They've been really, really struggling. They're all over the place. Their IGL's been on a break. Then arguably their star player's been on a break. They've come back. Everything's been rough over there. And they came into this RMR needing to perform to guarantee 100% that they would be at the major. It was certainly up in the air. Anyway, they obviously, as we said, they beat 0-0 Nation. They lost to Team One, right? And they lost to Team One heavily. And remember, these were all best of ones we're talking about. So next up is Triumph. Now, EG should have enough in the tank to beat Triumph. But EG is also a psychological basket case that just goes on tilt as soon as anything bad fucking happens, because no one wants to be there. They're all dreaming of I say no one. In particular, the American players don't want to be there. They're all dreaming of big fat Valorant paychecks, and every day they spend in CS, they're turning them down, and it's affecting their mental game, and we're all just pretending that's not what's going on. Fine, no bother. I love the big lie that these guys are really committed to the fucking future of the org and the future of the game. Brilliant. But anyway, they could have conceivably lost the Triumph. However, a Triumph player called Xseed literally slept through the game, and EG took the forfeit win, which put them in a much more advantageous position than they would have been in. Now, the aftermath of this basically was, as you can imagine, lots of mockery, lots of derision, lots of arguments back and forth about, it's a disgrace. Oh no, it's not a disgrace. So anyway, I'll give an example of this discussion that I saw online where I can see both sides. We'll talk about that in a second. But what's your first thought here about it's a qualifier for the World Championship in North America, and players are sleeping through the games and gifting wins to teams as a result?
I mean, I'll say first and foremost, the very fact that someone who is essentially so unprofessional, I've never heard of this player, so I'm not going to claim it's someone like I know, but the idea that they're even in the mix to be in the qualifier shows how far NA has gone down, because essentially we've got to the point now where, I mean, there's freaking people at the top of NA who've never played any real lands, etc. So, yeah, God forbid what happens when you go down in the teams and you're just working with people who used to probably be like the basement dweller of invite level, now are somehow relevant in these tournaments and, like you say, can be in a world championship qualifier. That's bad enough. Then there's the whole angle that, like, look, it was very easy at the moment, aside if you see SPPA, to paint a favourable picture for NA. Like, look how they've been treated. Oh, look, like, how can you blame them? There's no tournaments in their region. Even people like ESL sort of just pissed in your face by going, well, hold like an old go for CS Cup if you want. Like an ESL, they almost were doing that like as if that's a replacement for Pro League in your entire region, And so, in all these things going on, then there's the whole thing where people like Cloud9 have pulled out. There was rumours EG would pull out. 100 Thieves have pulled out. All this shit. I mean, fucking hell. Like, in this scenario, and then Valorant's looking prime, and everyone's going, bloody, if I stay in Valorant, I can play in NA. So you look, at the time, it's easy to make all these reasons why it's depressing to be an NA pro. And, wow, give them a break. What if some of the guys in teams like Triumph and Extra Salt are actually good enough, but they can't get into 100 Thieves because there's no orgs rich? Well, here's the problem. Even though it's one guy and it's one isolated incident, you now make the whole region look like fucking clown shoes because you can't turn up to a game. You can't wake up. By the way, I'm just going to say this, and this is one of those things where some people I know will feel called out because some of the people in the talent crew have the same problem where they go, oh, you don't believe it, Thorin. Like, I tell you what, I didn't just set the alarm. I was setting alarms that ask me to do maths problems and I'm just doing them in my sleep, so I don't understand it. Like, oh, it's almost like I'm fucking Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I just can't do it. Set about 50 alarms then. Get your fucking mum to call you up at mine in the morning. There's got to be some contingency plan here, hasn't there? The guy with the fucking nukes code, you have to just rely on him doing Snake while he's asleep to turn the alarm off. Like, this is a fucking joke, mate. It's the World Championship. Like, if you're at a major, if you're at a tier 1 event, figure it out. Get some system in place. Tell the bloody TO, because it starts to sound like a shit excuse when you do that. So I agree. Look, as much as it's like a person who wasn't a real pro and they made a mistake, you have made your team and the region, unfortunately, look like an absolute fucking joke. Like, you just look silly at this point in time. So my first thought was just like, this is just incompetence. This is clownery, isn't it? That's why I'm interested to see what possible angle someone's come up with to fucking defend this. I don't know.
Well, you already know, but I'll just show you the discussion and then I'll give you my thoughts. So this is obviously between Note and a chap that I know who called Khan, who he's been like a manager and stuff on ESEA level teams. He's a cool guy. And basically, Note said it's actually an absolute fucking joke. Players are sleeping through a match to qualify for the major at almost 6 p.m. Eastern time. And then Khan says...
It's even more egregious. 6 p.m. local. Fucking hell, mate. We're not even talking about a 10 a.m. game there. Like, in that scenario, how fucked is your life and sleep schedule? You can't wake up for 6 p.m.
Yeah, I mean, listen, well, you know what gamers are like, mate.
I mean... Uni. I was playing Metal Gear Solid. I had to get through that fucking level. Listen, which is going to last me more in my life?
Yeah, if you were playing Metal Gear Solid,
exactly.
What you mean is you have to get through that cutscene.
Listen, they do take a long time. What?
Yeah.
And by the way, like, end of the game, I don't even cut the cutscene. I even watch the credits. I get emotional. I fucking, you done me again, Kojima. Oh, bloody hell. Fuck, lads, I've got something in my eye. Fuck. It's done me. No, sorry. Anyway, but yeah, what I was going to say was, which lasts me better in my lifetime? Whatever revision I could have done for uni, or the experience of playing Metal Gear Solid, unfettered by revision and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think I've made the right choice.
And let me just
games
add
20
to
years
why
later.
this is a problem, and I'm gonna go to a fucking fucked up place here. People aren't gonna like it, but we're all along for fucking Mr. Richard's magical ride today. Right, he was liking tweets 2 hours before, so he's left.
He's some sonambulous cunt, like narcolepsy or whatever. Like, I don't know. What was that movie? Give me a break.
He left a visible trail to prove he was awake 2 hours before the thing he slept through.
Mate, this is like, if people don't know the quick story, it's very brief. In League of Legends, almost equal clownery there's a guy called Zyrene who was an NALCS caster, right? And he literally just didn't turn up to like Worlds or something one day when admittedly they were doing it remote, so you had to get up at a different time. But here's the problem with the story, guys. You all think that's reasonable. No, he was just like streaming all night the night before.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, mate, it's like you've built a fucked up alibi that destroys you and proves you did the crime. Like what?
Mate, it's like, I've had people, right? This is no joke. When I was a manager, when I was a gaffer, people used to fucking come out with me after work, right? I'd have 2, 3, 4 pints, decompress, and I'd go, right, I'm going home then, lad. See you tomorrow, yeah. And I'd doing tequila shots at the bar, going, yeah, see you tomorrow, gaffer. See you tomorrow, gaffer. See you. And you're like, all right, he's on a mad thing. He's fucked, like. And then you get the phone call the next day, oh, yeah, I think I got food poisoning. Just,
no.
Come on, you're pissing in my face.
I know, it's outrageous.
It's outrageous, the lies. I'm a food you're pissing in my face. So anyway, I'm going to do XC a favour here, because this will one day be the official record of the history of the dead game that was CSGO. I will not show the tweets he was liking, but let's just say they were anime themed.
Get me out.
Yeah. So, right, the response from Khan is, I'm going to keep saying that this will continue to happen until the scene becomes financially sustainable. So it's at least a livable career for these players, or we will continue to see this, and I will continue to support their autonomy to do so without being abused. The last bit's a little bit iffy for me, but I do understand the broader premise. What people don't realize is, I don't know what type of money they're getting from Triumph, but eventually in this discussion, they were saying that actually they might not even be like salaried players or whatever, or
implausible, I don't think.
Yeah. And so, the biggest problem with the amateur scene in Counterstrike is that they put a bunch of expectations on players to be professional athletes without any of the rewards of being a professional athlete. That's not a unique problem to NA. That's a problem from the moment I got into esports. That's been a problem, and all of the problems stem from that. The match fixing stems from that. Everything stems from that. That you're telling people, practice 8 hours a day, be the best you can be to get my organization and my brand in front of these eyes, so I can leverage that in the sponsorships, and then we'll talk money. And it's like, no, come on, this can't be the model.
Push that fucking premise to its limit, though, because again, it would be different again if it was like, right, you're maybe not even salaried, or you're on like a very low semi-pro. Essentially, it's like part-time work for you. So yeah, we can't treat you like you're supposed to be a model professional. But that would make sense if it was like, you overslept for a 9 a.m. or a 10 a.m. game. This is like, this guy is the ultimate fucking like, fuck the man. He's like the ultimate hippie. He's like,
I know he is though.
So he didn't turn up at 6 p.m. He didn't follow your rules, society. He's a free spirit, and I ain't about to just put the shackles on him. Listen, man, I give you a break.
I love Cobb, but he is Dennis Hopper in Apocalypse Now, for real. Like,
what angle's that? He's just defending to the death, isn't he?
Yeah, no, but like,
he's
so
your system, man.
Yeah, no, it's fair. It's fair. But it's like I said, those guys go back and forth on Twitter, and it's like both of you are right. Okay. The reality is, and this is where I'm gonna go to with it. Here's why it's a problem. Because Triumph, I don't think they could have qualified anyway, because they would have needed to have beat Godsend, who had done it, and they didn't.
Right.
Right? So people go, say it doesn't even make any difference. Well, it does, because they gave EG a free fucking win. You know, shit like this is unacceptable. Not because I don't sympathize with Exceed. Not, you know, he doesn't make any money. He's probably there in bed thinking, oh, I've got to play in 2 hours. Well, it doesn't matter. We can't qualify anyway. But the point is, you have to understand what you're doing to your fellow pros if you're Exceed. You have to understand that by ducking out on that game, you're giving an advantage. You're not just giving an advantage to EG. You're giving a disadvantage to every other team, and everyone's right to be pissed off about that, because you've completely subverted the course of the tournament. And now here we all are celebrating EG as legends, and he's in part responsible for that. So I don't know, mate. I've said this. Like, NA is just a joke. Here's what it always boils down to with NA, and it's been this way forever, and people say you shouldn't make wild stereotypes and all that stuff. But the bottom line is, unfortunately, until NA players get the money, they just never put in the work. And you can argue whether or not they should. You can argue whether or not we need a better structure in place to ensure there's a way to be paid fairly for the work you do, which I totally support and agree with, by the way. But the bottom line is, as soon as something bigger or better comes along than being a pro, they'll just gravitate towards that as well. Yes. How long's it been happening for? 1.6 to Source, CGS, then, all right, fuck it, nothing, moving to different games. Oh, I can be a streamer now, can I? Brilliant. You know, how many NA talents does it have to happen to show that basically there is something implicit to the progress of the whole NA scene? Where
there's
it's
a
like
level of entitlement as well. Like, yeah. they like, here's the thing I can't handle about it, Richard. In isolation, if I just consider like the two historical regions in CSGO are obviously Europe and North America. Look, if I only consider Europe, I think it is kind of unfair that these players that previously they lived in NA, they went to some international tournaments, there were some international tournaments in NA as well. So you're only maybe traveling a third half of the year outside of NA, and you do it for a week or two. So you make it work, right? Everyone's traveling all around that. I get it that compared to Europe, it's really unfair in the online era. My problem goes like this. Your literal region has constantly been interacting with Oceanic best team and all the best Brazilian teams who've been living in other continents their entire fucking time, not visiting their families, beating your ass sometimes, and then just fucking taking it on the chin and putting up with it. And we're sometimes working for way less money than you're making now. So to me, it's like, if you're an NA player, does it just have to be the best possible standard? Or as Richard says, do you just either take your toys home and cry, switch to another game, or just go, it's too hard for me? Like, look, I get it. Not everyone's going to put up through the hard yards like fucking 100 Thieves players did. But if I'm going to respect them for doing so, I have to sort of look down a little bit on people who just go, it's too much for me. It's like, do you want to be a pro or not? Or do you just want to be a pro under weird circumstances that are cool for you and easy, essentially, you know?
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I was disappointed with that whole business. I guess I'm already lagging for time. So fuck it. Let's just leave that one there. But the bottom line is, I mean, like, we have to take a look at this RMR system, and we have to revise NA down. How many slots do you think NA should have?
Realistically now, like, how many did they have this time? 5 or something, right?
Yeah, it's mental.
If it was 5, I think more like 3 at the moment. I'm not being harsh by saying that either. I think 3 is reasonable.
I'm inclined for 2. I'm inclined for 2, and like we also need to put broader definitions on what's going on with these RMRs, because it's
I had an idea along those lines. By the way, here's something we need to do. I think one thing that would be the obvious way to fix the RMRs is make it so that the RMRs actually compete for a way more limited number of slots. And then you take some of the spillover teams and they play one collective event for the last slots. Because there's another thing. That's one thing I loved back in the day. If you remember the 2 storylines that were for Katowice 2015, they went like this. Because it was the first offline qualifier where everyone globally came and played, there were 2 teams who qualified that we all would have called bullshit on that we couldn't. And it was Renegades from Australia, and it was Luminosity Gaming from Brazil. And because they beat teams like fucking Fetish's Dignitas team, the one where you had like the MSL players, etc., like not the sick players. And I can't remember. I remember. I think maybe like a French team or something lost to fucking Renegades. Like, real teams lost to them, basically, or like top Polish team or something. Like what it meant was nobody could call those bullshit. Like I could walk in now and go like, is Pain Gaming that good? You know, God sent whatever. He had a nice little right. I could do that all day long. If they'd actually beaten like fucking G2 and OG, like I can't talk shit. So I want a world in which some slots qualified just by being the best, but then maybe we have a way so that we don't have to sort of like keep swinging around which the slots are. Maybe we have a way you all compete against each other. I think that's a good compromise if we could.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, so this is the problem you've got, right? I understand, like, there's a lot of slots here, but there's a lot of slots here to accommodate the fact you've got 50% North American teams, 50% South American teams.
That's true. Yeah.
But you have a South American qualifier, and that gets one. And, you know, and so, like, these rules about where you compete, like, remember when the argument when we first went to the slots per region system, because I remember you did a bunch of videos about this because it was a big argument in the scene, was do we want the best teams there or do we want a broad global representation? And we differed on this, if you remember. You just want, I don't give a fuck if they're all American or if they're all, you know, from Sweden. I just want to see the top, you know, however many it is, 24 teams at a tournament. Me, I'm saying I think because it's a celebration of Counterstrike as well as being the premier tournament, I like the idea of having them regionally devolved so we do get that broad global appeal. So we end up with, you know, a Chinese team being there, a South American team being there, you know, and you build those storylines and those narratives and the potential for different styles of Counter-Strike to be played. I think it enriches the tournament. What I'll say now is, in the current RMR, it's a joke because you've got two South American qualifiers. And so it's basically Team Liquid. EG shouldn't have been there. Forget that. They just... I still am aghast they're legends. It is staggering to me. But, you know, so it's Team Liquid and then whatever Brazilian teams qualify in the NA qualifier and whichever team qualifies from South America in the South American qualifier, which will typically be the top Brazilian team. It's like, guys, like this system isn't working. You know, if you want to do the underdog angle in North America right now, and you want to fix some of these problems like motherfuckers sleeping through games, then you've got to say the South American team's got to play in the South American qualifier, and then suddenly extra salt. But I mean, what's going on? We've got South Africans and Australians and in the NA qualifier too. And we've got Renegades. What Renegades ride again, winning the Oceanic. You know, it's mad. Like, guys, like, what, you know, what pisses me off is we've ended up like ESL in the RMR in the sense that geographic labels mean nothing anymore. Yes. You know, we got IEM Fall, we got fucking IEM Online played from Germany, but it's Chengdu. You know, what does any of this mean? So we've really got to overhaul it. And listen, I'm not going to say American people are like, germs and all that nonsense, right? But I'd be a little bit aggrieved, I think, if I was one of these North American players who basically like got battered by 3 Brazilian teams in the qualifiers and now don't get to play at the major because of it. You know, I mean, like especially when there is a South American qualifier. If it was the Americas qualifier, fuck it, suck it up, Buttercup. But it isn't. So, you know, I don't know, man. It just seems like the NA thing was like just a farce. The whole NA RMR, not as much as the CIS RMRs, but a farce all the same. On to Europe. I won't belabor the point because otherwise this podcast it'll be another 3-hour spectacular and I'll sap your will to live. But let's just go over some of the big storylines coming out of the IEM Fall European RMR. Let's start with OG not qualifying. I think that's like a pretty big fucking story. OG have been an up and down team for a while. They're a they're a well crafted team. I don't know if they're a well funded team, but they've got good players that have achieved things at other organizations there. They've made some roster moves they didn't agree with, but that have worked at times and then not worked at others. And they they were number 10 in the world going into this, and now they're not going to the major. It's a big blow for them. I mean, to be fair, They lost games. It's inexcusable. You know, that you lost them. But again, with an in-game leader like Alexi B, I still think the not playing a best of 3 series hurts a team like this.
Oh, for sure. It's an obvious example for me of a team
Yeah.
where, look, I also agree they're not exactly like world beaters. Like, it's not like I thought they were going to win the major. Like, they had no chance of doing that. But if you just look at the quality of the teams there, they on paper they should have been there. And I do also think as well, much like, I mean, I know Heroic made it on points anyway, I think as it is, but obviously Heroic did shit at this tournament as well. Like, I don't think OG and Heroic, I don't even know if it's possible, if those are all best of 3s, that they're losing some of the ones that they're losing.
Yeah.
I mean, just as teams, the quality of the teams is good enough that they would win some of these, you'd think, if it was a match that mattered. So, yeah, I think this is like a mixture of the format. It also did expose some of their major flaws. Like, for example, their map pool has always been questionable. They're a famous team that fucking lose their map pick and then win the opponents, which is making you think, like, what's going on here, mate? Like, is something wrong at home? Like, is this fucking, do you just channel exist from the afterlife of CSGO and have him do the vetoes for you? Like, give me a break. And then the other angle I would say is this, it's just that, like, it's like you said, the problem was they were one of the teams that went real fast to make the roster move ages ago. They didn't just make theirs 2 months ago or 3 months ago. They made theirs yonks ago. And unfortunately, the roster move they've made is why you look at this org and you start to see why I was implying, like, I don't think they got money, mate. Like, look, they're essentially having to just gamble. They gambled on Nico being reclaimed from Heroic, who no one really wanted. Just wasn't any options. And then they gambled on the Flames guy, who certainly has skill, but he's another one of these players. You know, there's a whole bunch of them now coming from these regions like Israel, Jordan, sort of countries that don't typically come and maybe have the visa issues. But it means, just like Xantares to Big, you might get an overqualified player. You might actually get the next hot shit. He just has nowhere to go within his region. So they gambled on him, and a bit like Spinks and Ensu, I'm sure we'll talk about later, they clearly have potential, but they're also a year or two out. When they play against the big boys, they don't always show up because they're brand new to their careers. So I think as a squad, the problem I have is parts of the lineup are like, give it time. The other parts are like, why are we still sticking with this? So I feel like they're a team where they're a mess for me. And this is just the fucking cherry on top of the cake, mate.
Yeah, and look, I mean, the game where I was like, okay, there's something more at play here was their loss to Mad Lions. Now, our boy Warro 2K did drop 33 kills in a best of 1 against them.
I've heard he's been getting some hype behind the scenes from players, though. People actually do think he's very good.
Yeah, I mean, he's in that weird world where it's like he's a player that's hyped to come through. Simple's vouched for him personally. He's got a bunch of dodgy clips and potential links to a VAC-banned account. I don't know if you remember. You remember that clip we played on? So, I mean, look, everyone goes through that crucible. I'm not going to make a determination one way or another. You know, those clips don't do you any favors, but every pro, especially ones that played in a certain era, they've all got them, right? So, you know, whatever, we'll have to wait and see. But that was where I was like, because I don't think that Mad Lions team is going to do anything at all, even with Warro 2K sort of spearheading them. That, to me, is the big failure. So I'm just going to tell you something, and you can let me know what you think of this. Behind the scenes, the spite and the outrageous behavior of Hunden obviously has put Nico in the frame for a potential ban because
he's kind of self-incriminated, right?
Yes, because essentially what Hunden did was he tried to get him to confess to something he may or may not have done, not once but twice, a year apart. And as I've said before, Nico's a player that has a condition that does affect his recall. It does affect his memories. And Hunden knows this and tried to exploit that. That doesn't mean Nico's innocent. It just means Hunden's a piece of shit. So the problem is ESIC doing what they always do. Like, right, well, we're off into the wilderness to take DMT, and we'll come back and tell you which way the bands are going to go. Could be a day, could be a month. You know, they fucked off. And this cloud over the team, they don't know whether Nico's going to be allowed to play for them. They don't know how long they're going to lose him for. They don't know if he's going to be banned or if he's not going to be banned or if he's going to be found innocent or not. And my understanding is within the org, they don't know what the contingency is going to be moving forward, or whether or not it would have been better to replace him out and bring in a new player for the long term and start the rebuild. Now, you can't have all that uncertainty going into the major for sure. And ESIC haven't helped them there by taking so long. But in particular, Hunden hasn't helped anybody. So I do feel a bit of sympathy for them here, OG. I think that's the type of thing that would affect you preparing for the biggest tournament of your careers.
Sure. I mean, put it this way: we went out of our way to praise on the last episode how well Heroic played, in spite of all that shit that was going on.
Exactly.
That's not to be expected.
Did Heroic as well a little bit.
To me, that's not to be expected. It's the same scenarios why I went out of my way to actually do a tweet years ago where I basically said, if you're a player who's like ill, or you have like a bereavement, or someone gives birth in like your wife or something, if you then play Mega, you are a hero, mate. Like no one should expect you to another. So similarly, yeah, if you've got this spectre hanging over you, I could totally see why that would make not only maybe the player bad, but especially his teammates. I mean, they might not even know if he cheated. Who the fuck knows? There's a million angles.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously that was, something there. I feel sorry for OG. I don't know, honestly. It's hard to say whether or not they deserve to be there. I don't know if I would.
It's borderline.
Yeah, I don't know if I would commit to that. But what I do know is a different format. They would have had a much better chance, I think. Then the other story, let me just get back to the notes here. The other one I want to talk about is obviously FaZe squeaking through. I mean,
it's hilarious fucking WWE storyline of Nico will decide your fate, Carragher. Are you for real? And then he even lost the first series in like OT, like, really, motherfucker? Like, after all this time? Always.
Yeah. So, that basically was the situation where FaZe had sort of won enough to be in a position where if G2 beat, who was it they had to beat?
It was Ents first, and then they just had to not lose 2 series in a row or something.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, Fiend. It was the Bulgarians. They couldn't lose to Fiend.
Right, there you go.
Or FaZe would have been out. They wouldn't have qualified, I think. So anyway, basically you've got Nico, who, as we all know, hates Carrigan, or dislikes him, let's say. Hate's too strong a word. And they basically, had to sit there and wait. FaZe are just so weird a team, mate. Like, I've got to be honest, I'm actually, for the first time in my career, following this game, I'm disappointed in Carrigan.
Okay.
I don't like any of the rhetoric around this team. You're on one of the top orgs in the world. I mean, they're a scumbag org, ran by scumbags and populated by scumbags, but incredibly, despite being a scumbag org, they've stuck around. I mean, the size is, right? You've spent the online era talking about how online doesn't matter, even though it's all we've got, right? You have specifically said in interviews you want like a year to put your team together, which you, at this point, you've been gifted the better part of that.
It's mental, yeah.
Which not everyone gets. You've had a star player brought in to replace another star player at a time when NA orgs are diminishing their spending. You went to one LAN tournament and did okayish with Olaf Meister there. And you said, see, when LAN comes, we'll be fine. Well, what was the excuse for this? They lost some really dubious games. And my understanding is, and I don't have the stats in front of me, but I think Olaf Meister might have been the worst rated player at the event. He was certainly in the bottom bunch for a time. And yet we're all talking about this great functional team moving forward. And then Carrigan was like tweeting out, going, oh, it's terrible to have your fate not in your hands. It's been in your hands. Who is this guy? Who's took over Carrigan? Carrigan was almost one of the most forthright, professional IGLs. I could never criticize that guy. But I don't know. It's like he doesn't really care at the moment or something. Like he's lost motivation, and that's bad. That's bad. This team could have come in for a lot more criticism than it did.
Oh, for sure. I actually feel like they don't get criticised enough. Like, there's people who are Carrigan haters who go hard for obvious reasons. But I agree. It's because the general sentiment goes like this. Obviously, it's awkward to say Olaf Meister's washed and he shouldn't be in the team. I hope he keeps his streak going of going to all the majors. There's all that bullshit weighing over you. Then there's the whole angle that people do like Twists. He is a really good player. There's generally likable players. Brokey's obviously a feel-good story. Carrigan himself getting a chance to have a vaguely competent team again after mouse spots. But I agree. My problem is this. I feel like most people have like the love-hate relationship with FaZe where they want to love the team so much and they want them to be a contender. that essentially, I do it myself. You essentially just huffing the fucking copium that everyone loves in League of Legends. Like, realistically, you watch them in the server, they very rarely live up to it, do they? Like, 1 out of 3 games, they sort of deliver the kind of form you want to see. And then I definitely agree with the angle about Carrigan, which is you always have to look at people relative to their opportunities and what their circumstances are. So if you're in FaZe Clan, I agree. That's like being in Chelsea and going, yeah, I am in Chelsea and I have had, some players that were my pick from the transfer market and I've got an enormous budget and facilities now. But you know what? Like, it's not been a good season. Like, I know we're sort of competing for the Europa League. Give us like 5 years and we might be in the Champions League. It's like, motherfucker, you're in Chelsea now. Like, you're talking like if you got to go to a bigger, like, you're in it. You're in it. And the one part I will say is this. This is one thing I will not actually let Carrigan have a pass on. We didn't just figure out recently that Olaf Meister is tanked. He basically admitted it to me when I told him I was doing the video ages ago, before Carrigan was even in the team. And that's before the past years where he was basically on a downward trend anyway. So my problem is this. If you hadn't have made it to the major, you can look in the mirror, mate. Never mind look at Olaf Meister. Look in the mirror. Why did you let him keep playing? Because remember, I get it. Maybe they don't want to spend big before the major. But there's a world where you can go get some young FPL kid, or you can get someone that's like a basically, you could reclaim one of these players that's on the outs. You could get fucking someone like Smooya. You can get whoever the fuck you want. You could have tried it, but you gambled your fate on washed up Olaf Meister. Now, you got away with it in part, by the way, because Nico just fucking carried and basically got you to the major. But like, who are you going to blame except yourself? Because as you say, what he's basically done there is paint himself into a corner and go, well, I can't bloody get out of this painted area that I've painted myself into. It's like, well, whose fault is that? You did it, mate. We didn't. We were even going, please stop painting into the corner, Carrigan. You just wouldn't do it, would you? So I agree. I think it's pretty whack. I think, put it this way, they better do some big fucking work at this major. Big boy work.
Yeah, they got to. I mean, the roster they've got, there's just no excuse for it. But, so that was one. Then obviously we're gonna get to the sort of winners of the event. Copenhagen Flames got in. That's a surprise to me. I know everyone loves this team on social media. They're all very much into them because they're sort of the plucky underdogs. But I mean. They aced the tournament. It just feels to me that they've been beneficiaries of a lot of stuff going their way. It's not just that they're playing lights out Counterstrike. It's that they got to play in a format that would play to the strength of a team that nobody prepped for, which is them. And on top of that, you get to compete at the RMR that has the disproportionate amount of points, meaning basically do well at this, finish deep at this, you go into the major. So yeah, obviously you celebrate. Obviously it's great you're there. But I think under any other circumstances, I think under a codified RMR that made sense, these guys don't get to go.
No, this is an obvious example of a team. Like, the difference is when we talk in a minute maybe about like Ents, for example, they proved it, mate. They actually were one of those teams where it's like I said earlier, I feel like they might have made it through like some sort of global land qualifier. They actually looked like they had all the pieces. This team and a couple of others, I don't know, we'll address them, who gives a fuck? They're not really known teams. There was a couple of teams that got through that people were doing their level best to build the whole underdog story. It's like, mate, they barely made it themselves. Or player X had the game of his life for 3 best of ones. Like, is that really the story you want for a major? You imagine he's going to go to the major and stop? He's probably not, is he? He's probably just going to flop,
And obviously coming soon to the major, me and you having to big up. This is how they got to the major. They beat G2, Duncan.
Yeah, but it's the thing. I'm back, baby. Yeah, exactly. If you know how I do it, I crush the underdog under my fucking boot like a roach, and I watch the little black goose stick out, and I go, get the fuck out of my face. Until they make like the final, and I go, well, begrudgingly, they have had a great run, haven't they, Rich? And fucking, it's great to see new blood in the city. Whatever lies I have to say.
This is why people never understood the dynamic we have. Because even though I would like to do what you do, I'm still going to set that up for you to do it. I'm going to be the foil. I'm going to be there going, Copenhagen Flames, the underdogs, great for some of these young players from Denmark. What an embarrassment of riches they've got.
All I'm going to say is this. I just went there because I've been doing this thing that me and Lurpus are doing now, where we're just sick of fans lying, mate. Like the same fans that go, I love underdog upsets. You're an idiot. It makes more people watch the tournament. We can factually prove using fucking computers that it makes less people watch it, you fucking moron. To the extent that it goes even worse than that. It's not even just underdog. It's just teams that haven't got a big fan base. Like Gambit was the #1 team in the world, and they were getting nowhere near what Na'Vi got. So I just went to looked at the ES charts now. Oh, what a surprise. Not a single one of the top 5 games by viewership, which, by the way, the viewership wasn't fucking great for this event, which is a bit depressing. Not a single one has a Copenhagen Flames in it. The closest is one game as Sinners, and that was Complexity against them. Everything else is just legit teams playing each other. Oh, there's an Ents one, but that was already like where Ents had won a few games. Like, the people aren't watching these teams like Fiend. No one's watching Copenhagen Flames. Like, you lie and say you do, but that's just some feckless Reddit shit where you think you're masters of the universe and you can just grant DDK like status as the greatest caster of all time or something just by your will alone. Or just idiots like you say on social media just sort of going like, easy for Copen Flames. I don't know what the fuck the angle would be on that one. Like, just garbage, isn't it? Like, here's the problem. Not only does an upset fuck up the next round, because usually those teams get banged out like they did, but as I say, y'all don't even fucking put your money where your mouth is. I'd actually almost respect it, Rich, if you had a world where they really did ride with Ents and Copenhagen Flames and Fiend so that they were the #1 ranked games. If that was the case, I'd even have to give it up and go, maybe we should have some formats that allow crazy upsets. You know, there'd almost be like an efficaciousness to it. It's actually the opposite. Like I say, they're just full of shit.
Yeah. What do you what do you think about G2? Because I mean, they did enough to get there, and they did enough to get legend status, but I mean,
They're still ropey as fuck. Look, think of the stat that I found, right? Obviously, they played another best of 3 since then and won it, so I'll update the stat in my mind. I believe in the last, I think it'll be in the last 10 best of 3 that G2's played, they've won 2. One was against Fiend, and one was against MIBR, who was busted as fuck, by the way. Not the good MIBR. So, like, that tells you everything you need to know. And along the way, they're losing to Sinners, fucking Ents. Like, they're not, it's not only top teams they're losing. So, like, the worst thing is, like, basically, if you go back even to Cologne when they made the final, that was like they couldn't fail to make semis. Then they go to line and they make a final. Everything's on the uptick. You could start to believe, like you were saying, oh, maybe they can win an event. Now it's like they're going to ride into the major, looking the worst they've looked in ages. It's depressing. I feel like it. I'll say this because I was doing some of my watch parties for my sponsor. So I was watching some of the G2 games. I was saying to some of my fans and the people who were listening, like, I'm sorry, this reminds me of when you know you've got a roster move coming up and you go, we'll go to the last event anyway. It feels like almost like a dead team walking. Like, here's the thing. I know people are trying to angle it that's Nico's fault. Nico's playing out his fucking mind, mate. He's doing everything he can in the server. I don't know beyond that, but I haven't heard any reason to assume he'd be like, put it this way, Nexus and Hunter's literally his relative, and Nexus is his mate. I don't feel like he's actually like taking over and raging at people. I don't think that angle works. I don't feel like it's the FaZe Clan Nico. So I think he's killing it. The rest of them do just sort of look like it's going to be one of us after the, you know what I mean? It's almost that vibe of like we're just going to play the major out, which is whack because you should have come in as one of the potential favourites.
Yeah, it's really sad. That ESL Pro League run where they went 0-5.
Oh, it was the end, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And they said that was predicated on not having a boot camp.
Right, that was it, yes.
Which again sort of begs the question, you know, why?
Exactly. The Ryan Reynolds thing, but why?
Yeah. Yeah, because think about it. I mean, it's not the time you want to be slacking. Like, this is where you want to go in absolutely match fit. After the major, you know, I don't even know what the tournament schedule even looks like. I think people can sort of, you know, have a break. So it's very strange one. But I agree with you in the sense I think there's going to be a roster move. Well,
mate, if people haven't noticed, I'll just say again, reiterate, because I know not everyone who's from like League of Legends, etc. Everyone might just only know G2 from CSGO. Yeah. In League of Legends right now, Carlos, the owner, has done such a big balls move. He took literally a team that still had 4 of the best players ever from Europe. And the 5th, by the way, has been a 3-time MVP of the European region. He took that squad, and they haven't even finished like announcing who'll join the league. He's already announced that he's kicking 3 of them out of the fucking team to be sold. Like, mate, people don't know. If he really believes it's possible to win and he cares about the game, this guy is the ultimate ruthless fucking owner, but in a good way. Like, he's not doing anything shady. He's just doing it by the book of like, look, I paid you a fucking king's ransom. I can also pay you to fuck off.
It's his Jason Lake moment.
Yes.
You know, when Jason Lake said, let's build a...
So I could easily see after this major, especially if they don't do something, like if they don't make top 8, I feel like I don't think this is even just one move, guys. I don't think this is the players get to choose one player and kick it. I think this is you tear half the team in half, or you maybe even just say, right, Nico, pick one person. Like, that's the new team. We'll get the other 3 in. You know, I could feel like that. And by the way, I would almost welcome it at this point in time if they're going to play like this.
Yeah, it's really hard because when they were finishing runner-up, when they were finishing third in the CIS dominant era, you can't say change the team. You can't say that. It doesn't make sense. You have to simply deconstruct what your opponents are doing and prepare for those guys. You've got everyone else licked. Then they had that runner-up and they got battered by Na'Vi. And you go, okay, next time. Because eventually, Na'Vi, they're hands down the number 1 team in the world going this major. But one thing I'll definitely say about Na'Vi, they drop maps.
Of course.
They remind me very much of Fnatic 1.6 when they had their dominant era. You know, sometimes they would even finish like second in a group, but they battle through the lower bracket and win the whole tournament. Na'Vi have that same sort of susceptibility incorporated into their brilliance. And so for G2, all you need is someone else to take. If you can't do it, you just need someone else to be the hitman. If they've got your number, maybe they ain't got someone else's. And eventually, on a long enough timeline, that would have happened. But what happened to ESL Pro League was absolutely inexcusable. And I don't understand how not having one boot camp makes you completely go to shit and forget how to play Counterstrike. I don't understand that.
Because it's been across the board, if people haven't watched it. The map pool's fallen apart. Most of the players, except Nico, have fallen apart. Almost everything has. Like, there's the other thing as well. Aside from, like, some of my qualms about is Nexa a good enough IGL? Aside from that, they were a canny team. Like, no one else in the team, I think you really blamed. Like, Jackson and Amonic did their job. Hunter and Nico were 2 of the best players in the game. Like, in general, it was even a team, like, you know, they sort of looked well put together.
You know, you have to wonder, like I say, what Carlos will do after the major. I mean, the good news is they did enough to get legend status. So that secures the org's reputation. It's going to give you an easier time, have a deeper run at the tournament, you know, more money, all of that stuff. So that's great. But, you know, he's the type of motherfucker that'll make a power move. And then what's the power move?
He doesn't even just want to be good. He wants to win, I'm telling you. By the way, if people don't get it, you guys who are fans think it's just pointless dick waving when Hastro and all these guys are coming out. My org's bigger. Dude, that is the game they're playing. That's their chess game. They really want, no joke, to be able to big balls go, I've got the best org in the world, Hastro, because I've won in CSGO. That's what they want to do. They want to run off that fucking list. It's like a bunch of industrialists just meeting up going, well, I have the big oil. Well, I have the diamond, man. You couldn't like... It's almost that shit. It really is.
No, you're right. You're right. You don't lose the competitive streak. It's just you compete in a different way. Exactly. It's no different for me. You know, I did a lot of sports, used to compete on the field of journalism, you know, and even in my hosting, there's a bit of that. It's just how it is. You know, you're either a competitor or you ain't, I think. But yeah, I mean, the power move is going to be someone like Rops from Mouse Sports or something, you know, and then we start talking about team balance and can Nico play nice? Who knows? But yeah, G2 are there. They did it. They did just enough. Let's talk about the team that beat them. The Spanish team, Movistar Riders, the first ever Spanish team to compete at a major. And I got to say, I'm always happy to eat humble pie, any pie. They're all good. But the fact that they kicked out Smuyu, such a talented player, and it looked real bleak. And they were going, we want to go all Spanish. It'll improve our communication. And then they picked up 2 players from a team that they were like beating in tournaments, and sort of to make it, you know, the most overused term in esports, a Spanish super team. I thought, this is garbage. This can't work. Well, it has. I mean, there's obviously something to the improved communication and the way they're playing. I mean, you know, and they're a very hyped team. They remind me a lot of when, you know, Furia first come through and things like that. They're actually a legit headhunter team. They fucking, you know, if you go and look at the wins, like, I know people are going to say, oh, but you didn't say this about Copenhagen Flames. I mean, if you go and look at their results since they made this roster move, here's what So they started out in a real bad spot, right? They lost the best of one to Heroic. They lost the best of one to Astralis. And at that point, you're like, shame, but they're going to be also Rans. Then they went on a tear. They beat Complexity. They beat Sinners, beat Endpoint. From that, they transitioned it into these stupid, it's just one fucking MR3 overtime. Beat Sinners again. Beat Heroic in that. Then they take a map off NIP. Then they beat Copenhagen Flames. And then they beat G2. Fuck it, man. I'll say that's a legit run at a tournament. Like, we can point to the format again, of course. I'm going to say that's a legit run. And I'm very, very impressed with them. They actually I'm not saying they're a better team, but just in terms of the storylines in this tournament, they impressed me more than Copenhagen Flames, I think.
Oh, for sure. I mean, as you said, they literally beat G2 in a fucking best of 3. That's not nothing. Listen, yeah, G2 hasn't been the greatest, but like again, that is one of the top teams. That is one of the best players. That guy can win the game on his own. And also, I'll even say, obviously, we don't know the Spanish scene, so we could never speculate on this. The guy they brought in to be the AWPer instead of Smoothie is their best player as well. Like, I can't even blame for that. Maybe they were right.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if you do your scouting and you get all of that, yeah, brilliant work from the org. They can feel very proud of what they accomplished. So let's get to the big 2 storylines, and then we'll segue into viewer questions. Obviously, Ents have had the miracle run here. And what's great about this is the final shows the madness of punditry, because you can be right and you can be wrong. Now, if we had a Jamie, we don't have a Jamie. We have a Sam who never pulls up tape. He just sits there doing bong hits, timestamping all the outrageous shit Duncan says, which, by the way, is also an important job and does enable the show to move forward. But we would be able to pull up a clip now from a past show of me, and I'm pretty sure Duncan as well, go, well, this team's just a mishmash. It's got no identity. It's a hodgepodge of nationalities and ideas. And it's snappy in 2021, right? Oh, by the way, all valid. Dorto, come on. He wasn't even good enough for the old ends, right? You'll pull us up saying all that shit. I don't know how this team's working, but I'm going to say 2 things. I'd heard for ages from all the FPL fucking junkies who think if you do well in FPL, you're going to be a world-beating player. Like, about Spinks and about Hades and stuff like that. Like, oh, these are the guys. Turns out these are the guys. Fucking fair play. They are playing fucking insane. And I think the addition of, however you pronounce it, Dieter, you add this kind of like raw talent that's never been in a position before to be at a big organization with good salaries and, not a massive fan base, but they're established. And you give them an old veteran IGL who, by the way, I think Snappy's sort of in that MSL territory where it's like he's got a great brain, but the flesh is weak.
Hasn't managed his career the best, exactly.
No, and he's made a lot of fucked up decisions as well. Because I remember him from like back in 1.6 as well. He could have been a celebrated like IGL, not like a true great or anything, but certainly valued to a greater degree than he is. But yeah, he's made some fucked up, silly choices about where he's plied his trade. But I mean, I think somehow the madness is when you look at it, it sort of does work in the end. These players are all like trying to establish themselves. They've got a guy that's definitely coming to the end of his career. Could even be that this might be the last ride. Who fucking knows? Oh. And yet, they've got a great system and raw firepower. It's actually mad.
Something I just realised it's mental. I hadn't even thought of this angle.
Yeah,
mate, imagine being MSL. You're watching Astralis without Glaive and fucking that lucky guy. They're just qualified to the major. Well, whatever. It is still Astralis. They've still got Magus and Dupree.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't stop there, MSL. Copenhagen Flames have made it, mate. Copenhagen. Who've they even got in that team? Don't worry about it. They'll be all sold in 3 months. Oh, well. It's only 2 teams, isn't it? Snappy's made it with Ents. What, is Alu and Sunnit? Nah, new players. When does it end? Oh, good news. Devices won the RMRs. Well, fuck me, I'm out. It's like,
yeah.
Well, my career's gone south.
Yep. Not bad.
Hey, I was working on that.
Yeah, I know. I can tell. To get a crowbar in it, my brain immediately. It's good that we're getting this rapport back again and the understanding. We're going to need it where we're going. So, yeah, I'm just hugely impressed with them, mate. I think they're, here's what I'll say as well. Again, classic Reddit nonsense. I saw a thread not that long ago where it was like going, wow, Ents are on like a 17 map winning streak or something like that. They're real good. Everyone in that thread, yeah, it's lower opposition, Ents and shit. Like the same people who, by the way, upvote fucking Navi. If
Oh,
Navi had beaten Gambit the last three
Yeah.
times they'd played them, they would be on a 19 map winning streak. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah,
Oh,
brilliant.
and also that guy, that guy was like, how? So they've won 7 in a row. What is the record? I know.
I know.
More than 7. It's a bit more.
Yeah, a
just
bit
a
more
bit.
than 7, just a tad. So yeah, but it's like, you know, Ents have had a fucking really the run they
sure.
have had at this tournament to be in the final of the, you know, this tournament is fucking crazy. And again, these are legit wins. They lost to OG. They were one of the teams that lost. That game lasted forever. That was a fucking mad one. But they beat Mad Lions, beat Vitality, beat G2 in a best of 3, beat Astralis in a best of 3, get to the final against NIP. Got to play a best of 5, which we'll talk about at the end. Yeah, I mean, they took a map off NIP, but sort of doesn't tell the full story about the ebb and flow of the game because there was a 16-14 there on Ancient as well. So it could have easily gone the distance.
Legit for inexperienced players. Is this still a semi-land tournament?
Yeah.
I thought from beginning to end, this team was impressive, mate.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know what to say. I guess you fucking can't be right all the time, you know.
Yes.
But I mean, those guys going to the major, you know, they're the one I think most out of all of the teams I didn't expect to be there that have the genuine headhunter. You want to avoid these boys at all costs potential. Because they're already taking big scalps and people can go back and forth on it because they're not particularly popular players with big followings. So people are always making excuses for the victories. And are they beating Astralis when Glaive wasn't there? Well, admit, those players are some of the most tenured and decorated veterans in the motherfucking game. These guys have not even 100th of their experience and they beat them. That is worth praise and acknowledgement. So yeah, I think people want to watch out for Ents. I think they're going to come into the fucking major like a wrecking ball.
Oh, they're the sleeper. Put it this way, I agree. Out of all the teams that did the upsets, they look far and away the most legit. They also did the biggest body of work. You even look at, like, mate, across the board, like, here's what's crazy about their team. Because, as you say, Snappy was never a bad in-game leader. He was just at times not the best and maybe not, like, shouldn't have been maybe in a top 5, top 10 team. It's maybe times you could debate that. But he's obviously, just like all the bloody Danish in-game leaders, he's got the nous, he's got the basic skill set to do it. He can run a team. And in fact, I'll even say he was even fragging half decent in some of these games against G2. He was actually doing shit himself. Then you look at the teams he had. In the contact team he had, which looks a bit similar to this, he even had the Spinks guy. The problem in contact was this. All the players were too fresh. It was all players who haven't actually done it yet. Like, the most experienced was fucking Esperanto. It's like, even he's been at like one major and almost made it. Like, he didn't even do it. It's a moral victory. Then you had players like Ships just never fucking lived up to expectations. He had to fuck off elsewhere. Apparently he's like an in-game leader now in that Scar team.
Esperanto's a bit of a cunt as well, you know, like behind the scenes.
So, you know,
he's going to be a bit of an IGL's nightmare.
So this wasn't the easiest bunch of players to manage, but unfortunately, because they were also, as you say, the sort of like FPL super hyped players, people were just like, right, well, that Snappy guy's just shit then, isn't it? As far as I can tell, they were all the same fucking player. They were just like, well, I'm a superstar aimer that shoots everyone in their head. If it's a Mirage fucking PUG game with all pros not playing like pros, therefore I'm ready for the top level. It's like, you're far from top level, mate. You got to learn the game. You got to learn how to play in a team. You got to learn a system. So as far as I can tell, in that team, he just never was given the right pieces to work with. It looked like it was, but it didn't. He didn't have like the veterans to go with him. He didn't have people who maybe had like smaller egos, as you say. He didn't have people who knew how to play and practice in a top team. This squad, the Spinks guys had time to develop. He's looking amazing. The Dicker guy who came from Sprout, and in Sprout, obviously, they are a team that has always, from the German scene, run proper systems, had proper coaching. I've actually been, they're another one of those teams that just churn out fucking players over the years. Fair play to them. And then you add in the Doto guy. He wasn't even the player I thought I would have necessarily picked out of the old Havu team, but fair enough, they made him work somehow. And then the part where you know this team is actually legit is they have like a pretty decent map pool as well. They're not, it wasn't like they got one map against everyone lets us play, I don't know, a random one does too or something, we win. Like, no, they actually had like a map pool, as you're saying, like in every series, even in the final where they lost 3-1, it's a better 3-1 than you'd think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And then that brings us to NIP, and this is where I go from I was wrong now I get to be right.
Okay.
Because I've been telling people since this device move happened, what did I say? I said, there's a world, we get to the major in Stockholm, and NIP can win it. They can win it. They're the dark horse pick. And keep in mind, me and Duncan, when we were put on the spot in 2018 for the Boston major, who's your dark horse pick? We both said Cloud9.
Yes.
So I'ma just tell you, right? We've been right in the past, and that was at a time when Cloud9 had no chance to win. Right? That was the maddest pull of all time. Like even me and Duncan said afterwards, like, should we have said that? They're like, whatever. So the fact they have won this last big RMR before we go to the tournament, and the nature in which they've won it, should give every NIP fan a lot of hope. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So to get to the final, right? NIP won every single game. They won them all. They beat Fiend. They battered Fiend. They beat FaZe. They battered FaZe. All right? They had they battered Fnatic. They battered that double pony mix. They beat Vitality in a best of 3. And then had to play a best of 5 against Ents, who we've just established are the mad fucking scalpers in the fucking league right now, in the scene right now. And fucking they did them in a best of 5. And when you go and look at it, anyone gonna give me your fucking props about Rez? How long have I been saying this guy's fucking insane? This guy's insane.
Turn last few months, yeah.
Mate, he's always had this in him. I've got the magic eye for that shit. This guy's so fucking good, and he's been so good for ages, and now he's got a system that enables him to be a fucking star player, and finally got the confidence to be a star player. Do you know why? Because he's got a fucking wingman. He's got a fucking star player backup. He knows now, if he doesn't frag out, it's all right, we got fucking Device in the bag. I know Device hasn't been his world-beating best, but he was fucking great here. And let me tell you, I give mad props to shit. This is a guy who had his entire life turned upside down at the previous tournament to this and had one of his worst ever professional performances. And he went on Twitter and he apologized for it. And usually when players do that, it is some self-pitying bullshit. So they get some likes and they get that dopamine hit of social media and they don't work on anything and they don't fix anything. To go from your worst performance to go to this type of performance in such a short space of time with the stakes of this, just go give Device some fucking props. All you people that I see on fucking Reddit calling him Dog Vice, great performance from him. I've always liked Hampus as an IGL. I really like the system they're playing here. Because to put it in context, they won every game here and they are still dragging this dog shit Linus through these series. Like, they are literally winning these games pretty much, I'll be generous, 4.5 against 5. Right?
People are going to think, by the way, it's the same shit in Vitality with the Kyojin guy. People are going to think, well, if they're actually winning now, it must be working with that guy. Because, people before stats used to just go, the 5th guy really played well if you win the tournament, right? No, they're doing it in spite of it. That's what's actually impressive about the other players. Yeah.
Now, I know, because they've hyped up their system and their academy side and all their talent, they've got to come out and defend this kid. But you drop this kid after the major.
Yes.
Ideally, I would drop him going in. If I could, yeah. I'm not joking. He's not ready for the big boys. No. And you can talk about, it's roles. It's the role. He does so much for the team. He's so mature. Guy can't frag. Sorry. That's a baseline. It's like, you know what I mean? You can bring in, NFL example, you could bring in an all washed up quarterback to fucking give like mentorship to the young upcomer you're trying to develop. Very often you do see that with your second string. But they're the second string. You don't fucking play him. So it doesn't matter what he does for the mood or the mindset or all that. He's not good enough, guys. It's so obvious. And I know if it's not broken, don't fix it. It is broken. You're gonna get got because this kid's in the team, right?
But this is before we get to like a major on stage in your home country, 12,000 people. Get right, we miss you. And you're just there like, well, I'm about to just fuck this up for everyone. Sound.
Yeah. And it's just mad. I don't know what this kid's done because ZTR got no chance compared to this guy. ZTR had a blockbuster debut that raised expectations so high because he single-handedly beat Astralis in their last iteration of the good Astralis. And then after that, yeah, he went a bit quiet. But Hampus was in interviews going, he's like the secondary caller, he's so intelligent, he's all this. And then he just got dropped, he just got iced. Straight back to the academy you go. Linus, on the other hand, I haven't seen Hampus sing his praises or anything. I mean, I might have missed it. But this kid's just got
to ignore that he's in the team, mate. It's mad.
Yeah, they
pretend like it is 4v5 or something.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I thought they looked better with ZTR, but they've got to a place now where Rez, his power levels are over 9,000. He's fucking living the dream, and I've been saying this for years. This is his time. So I'm gonna tell you, they're very much my dark horse pick. They just got into the top 3 teams in the world again. Right? And think about the landscape they're in currently with a Crumble and Astralis, and Glave's just had a kid and he's going to have to come back, and they're probably not going to be as good, and G2 with the dead team walking.
Oh, there's plenty of teams that are damaged for sure.
This is one of the weakest global top 10s
for sure.
ever in the history. So can NIP, if results go their way, go and win a major? Yeah. And also, I don't even know what Navi's going to show up. I never know what Navi's going to show up. I've seen enough these last few months to say they're absolute favourites for it, but different kind of pressure when it's the big one. Different kind of pressure on Simple. We're talking legacy here. Remember, he's not won a major incredibly. So,
and I'll say this as well. Just think of FaZe Clan at Boston, where SK had the stand-in. Fucking what's the other one? Team Liquid at the Berlin. Yep. Tell you what, people don't know pressure until you're the heavy favourite. And in fact, it's supposed to be your coronation. I always say that's always the trap final. It's the one where the other guy's supposed to have no chance, and you're in fact supposed to win to complete a career arc. Those are the most dangerous ones, because guess what? You're in your own fucking head in that game. You think, bloody hell, I'm not supposed to be able to lose now, mate. You can go look. There's a whole bunch of like Super Bowls, all sorts of finals have been lost when that happens.
How often is outside of the Astralis era, how often is the favourite for the major won the major?
I actually looked this up ages ago. It's not very often, mate. It's something like 1 out of 4 times or something.
Yeah. So,
it's not as much as you'd think.
Also, I don't even know. There's going to be a clapback from Gambit at some point. I'm just hyped. I think there's going to be some real twists and turns in this major. Sure. I think for sure. But yeah, Nip. My dark horse pick. Let's talk about the best of 5 thing. Why did Europe? Why did Device? Because he tweeted about it. Against all conventional wisdom. I think just don't complain ever again. Just go win the major, mate. Like, do that and don't tweet. And that's coming from me. Stop. Because the community just doesn't like you now because you've left Astralis.
The thing is, I've got a little angle. No one's expecting it, so go on, set it up.
No. Well, I'm just going to say, so we tweeted saying, basically, why have we got to play a best of 5? And it's valid because, as I said in the last episode, if you change your best of 5 for one team, you literally change your tournament format on the fly, and you go, hey, it's okay, we did that because all the teams agree, and it doesn't really subvert the outcome. Nobody likes best of 5s. Nobody likes best of 5s. The outcome of this best of 5 wouldn't have made any difference. At that point, it's all established that you're playing for such a small handful of points. It's not going to move the dial. It was the same in the North American RMR. Best of 5s. Why do we have the CIS just gets to do what the fuck they want? Another region, by the way, that cannot be controlled by the esports hierarchy that we have. Not as bad as China, but ridiculous. And yet these players are tired and exhausted and had to play long fucking days and everything else to get these points. And you're playing a best of 5 though, mate. I couldn't believe it.
Here's the thing, on the surface I agree with them. It shouldn't be a best of 5. It looks like, quite frankly, like, bearing in mind these tournaments aren't traditional tournaments. Like, certain matches don't matter even in the semis or the final. Like, it's not a standard thing where the final's the big match. It isn't. As you said, if anything, the finals actually, it was only the fact ENCE was there to give a sort of a bit of spice that made there was any interest at all to it. Imagine if the final had just been like 2 teams that qualified, but I don't know, fucking Vitality and Astralis in the final. Whatever the fuck. Who would care? Who would care? So in that scenario, it's a waste of everyone's time. But if I want to go specific to Nip and Device, this is rich. This is rich as fuck. Because I could think of 2 sets of people you haven't even attempted to contact that could help you out. There's a company called Val Software that I heard you were literally attempting to say to Flashpoint, I'll just go to Valve and tell them not to give you any RMRs. You should never run another one unless you let me literally fuck over this small Polish org
yeah,
and play them away. Yeah, there was none of that. It was just a tweet. And then the other angle is this. Wait a minute. Isn't there a thing called CSPPA that helps you do negotiations and sort of make agreements with the ESL and get things the way you want it? Oh, not them as well. Nah, phone just doesn't work if your device. Twitter works still. Funny, he can only fucking get his ass out of gate to just call up the old Blasteroonies to get you-know-who fired, but, you know, that might come back to bite you. It's not like I'm on the desk for the next, the major, in the hometown of the team you played for. Everyone, fucking hell. He's only gone and done it again, Annie the boy. You can never get rid of him. That's the thing. You can never get rid of me. I'll always be there. I'm like that fucking shit worst ending of the fucking Dark Knight Rise. I'm the little fucking cunt with a knife. I just come in. The hidden dagger dice. Yeah. That's the fucking deadliest one, isn't it?
Yeah. Dice is there. Oh, at least I got rid of that beard.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I just come up, shank this.
But anyway, there you go. All the teams have been decided, I guess, for the purposes of propriety. I will read the list of the confirmed teams. This is the teams that will be attending at the major. These are the challenges: Team Spirit, Virtus Pro, Entropique, Astralis, Ents, Big, Movistar Riders. I keep getting corrected on that. Heroic, Mouse Sports, FaZe, Copenhagen Flames, Evil Geniuses. Pain rather. Evil Geniuses made it to the Legend stage. Godsent, Renegade, Sharks. That MIPR didn't even win the South American qualifier. Tyloo, and then in the Legends stage, Na'Vi, Gambit, NIP, Vitality, G2, Furia, Team Liquid, and Evil Geniuses. So, I mean, the Legend stage looks absolutely fucking mustard, doesn't it? You can't really argue too much about that. Right. As always, viewer questions. $50 or more, you get to ask us a question, Kemi, about anything. We will try and answer it. The questions usually devolve into, last episode, it was 50% of the show. So hopefully not crazy questions this time around. Chingu, which teams do you think should or will make a roster change, even if they do well at the major? That's very fortuitous, as we've covered a lot of that. I think the G2 roster change is coming, no matter what. I hope Nick make one, no matter what. EG, this has to be the swan song for this roster. There's just no justification, for keeping players who don't want to be there. And it's abundantly clear they don't want to be there. And I think the org needs to reevaluate its future in CSGO, even though I know they just made a hire for a manager and they keep publicly saying CSGO is vitally important to us. Sure, that might be true. Not this team, though. And maybe for me, we know Astralis are definitely going to make one no matter what, because it's been announced config is signed. We'll cover that more next episode. And Mouse Sports is another big one. Acor's kind of flopped a bit, hasn't he? And, Dexter's going to want to put his own stamp on the team soon enough. Rops might be out the door, depending on how other stuff goes. Beyond that, wait and see.
Basically, it'd be quicker to just say the teams that don't. So Na'Vi, Gambit, Ents. Is there even anyone else? Maybe Vitality. There's not many teams that don't need a roster move, realistically. That's one of the reasons why the top 10 is so fucking shaky right now. Because another factor is, because you saw how tight it got on points, you couldn't make a roster move. People have done 2 or 3 roster moves. It's been 2 years of the bloody RMR system, which also has got to be one of the stupidest conceits of all time. It's one thing already. People were complaining when 6 months you couldn't make a roster move. You can't go 2 years and tell me I can only make like 2 roster moves. I just forfeit like a third of my points or so. It's too much, isn't it? Like, you got to be able to run a spot.
Yeah. Marcus Kumpa. Now that NIP, with the help of the fine guys over at the CSGO subreddit, have once again saved the major, this time getting the talent on site in the arena. Yeah. Will we be getting a public apology from Silvio, made in Swedish? Live on stage right before Ninjas play in the final for his attempts to once again cheap out. Obviously, this is the reference that we weren't originally going to Stockholm when we got
Doesn't
hired.
this part tilt you though, mate? Because here's the thing. As usual, the biggest cunts of all time, aka Reddit, were going, see, they all knew the whole time they could have gone to Sweden and they lied, just tricked everyone and staying. And what circumstances? What could they be? How do you know that they literally didn't go away and have to rebudget and get loads of money and actually maybe pay through the nose to do this? And they might have done it just to please twats like you. But instead, these fans are going to say the whole time, like, you can't do anything for these fucking fans, can you? It's mental.
I know. No, there's. I mean, like, again, I'm not going to talk out school, and like you said, there's a ton of stuff I'll talk about after the major for sure. But the bottom line is this: like, when we got hired, like, I mean, you know, we were all obviously like what? Obviously, we want to be in the stadium, we want to be with the fans, but
fighting behind the scenes to try and get it happen.
You know, we had our own opinions about everything, and all the talent came together and made our views known. But equally as well, with everything that's been going on in Romania right now, and the fact that obviously PGL are literally coming off the Super Bowl of esports in the sense of the TI with the production, there were just a number of obstacles in the way that didn't seem realistic. Instead, now, what we've got is, because of the sort of, I don't want to call it backlash, it was more like just sort of muling, and I get it, because we wanted the same thing the fans did. Now, trust me, this isn't cheap, and there are so many mad moving parts to this, because essentially our day off to sort of like recharge and get ready for the next stage of the tournament is now a travel day. So, and we've all got to get from Romania to Sweden without any issues. The whole production has to be moved down there without any issues. You know, this is not like to do this, to make it right is a massive gesture. And obviously NIP and all them cunts had fuck all to do with it. You know, this is simply Silvio at PGL looking at the reaction and saying, all right, fuck it. Guess our bottom line has to be eaten into to make this right.
Meanwhile, dickheads, as usual, still pretend like, I bet he's making money off. I can't win. You can't win with you people. You're just stupid. Win. You're just idiots. Yeah. You can't win.
You never win. And by the way, for those who don't know what I mean by the situation in Romania, just go look up that there could be travel restrictions imposed any minute and all sorts of stuff. This is everything is like people are working mad hours behind the scenes to pull all this together. So, Watch Doge, with the sale of Newcastle to Saudi Arabia, when do you think we can expect?
Not the town, just the football team.
Give it time.
Not far. Yeah, I know.
Give it time. When do you think we can expect to see the Neom kit sponsorship by? Will it be worth more than the Visit Rwanda sponsorship that Arsenal has?
Mate, what's mad is there actually was, I can't remember who it was in esports tweeted this, but there was like, they got a promoted tweet from Neom on their Twitter. And it was even some mad angle, like, let's build sustainability together. And it's like, it's so mad. It's just so mad.
It's like, you know, listen, sounds great. I just don't want to build sustainability on like dead indigenous people. That's all right. Like, I think that's a problem.
It's the idea that you're trying to pretend like you're some sort of eco-friendly thing, and you're like, well, you're like on some Biden shit, gonna break a few eggs to make some omelets. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's wild as fucking it. But yeah, I mean, listen, obviously this is more aimed at me, being a Newcastle fan. It's hard. I've never put it this way. Mike Ashley has just held this club hostage for 14 fucking years. He's
the upside that they might spend some money, whereas obviously he was the opposite, right?
Yeah, well, because he's a cunt. He's a real cunt. He's a cunt in the purest sense of the word. He was a guy who, you know, had got wealthy. He runs Sports Direct that treat their workers like absolute fucking shit. And he's got wealthy, and he's still exploiting motherfuckers with 0-hour contracts and all sorts of shit. He's just a pure cunt, right? But because he came from Walsall, I'm sure you know all about Walsall, mate. Because he come from there, he thought he was like one of the boys and that, and he thought he'd spend his money on a club. And at the start, it all makes sense. He was mad pandering to the fans. You can go look some of his interviews. It's going to be different. We're going to get rid of players who don't want to be here. We're going to spend money. But then he started running it like a business. And because he's a cunt, obviously, he just brought in a bunch of fucking all of his Cockney cunt friends. We had Dennis Wise fucking as our talent scout. Dennis Wise is a fucking melt. He wouldn't know talent. Fucking slapped him in his little cheeky Cockney face. He's a cunt. They're all cunts. He brought in cunts. We had Joe Kinnear as a fucking manager, a cunt. All cunts, all Cockney cunts running a Newcastle club, you know? And then the audacity of it is to not spend any money. And you go, but Richard, he does spend money. Yeah, when he opens his fucking checkbook, the cunt buys absolute shit. We talent scouted Joe Linton, who he's not even championship level, mate. Joe Linton is mate. It reminds me of when that guy, Ali Dyer, pretended to be fucking George Weah's cousin, and Graham fucking Souness said, yeah, let's play him. And he saw for 15 minutes how shit he is. But we paid 40 million for Joe Linton. He is insanely fucking bad. And so, 40 million for that. Right? So when he opens the checkbook, he can't even get it right. Why? Because he's a cunt who employs cunts. And then he turns around and he goes, well, we have spent. Steve Bruce is a manager. Oh, fucking, what is he like? He looks like something out of a Kira.
Isn't he?
Oh, mate, yeah, he's a melt. He's another melt, a gammon melt. And so the club's we don't play attractive football. We're at the bottom of all of the stats. We've not won a game. And so you go, please, anything, get us out of this hellhole. Not to mention, when Mike Ashley had the fucking audacity when we were talking to another consortium, when we got relegated and he was going to sell the club for literally 80 million. Imagine buying a Premier League club for 80 million. Madness. And he said he would definitely sell up to this consortium. And he was going, the real tragedy is I can't even go to the game with my kids anymore. But you're a cunt and you're ruining the club. So yeah, you don't get to sit in the stands. People take exception to it. It used to be under Sir John Hall, a people's fucking club. Sir John Hall used to invest in everything in Newcastle. Infrastructure. He built fucking hospitals, this guy. And that used to be our owner. Not you looking to nickel and dime it like it's Sports Direct 2. So fuck you. But the problem you've got is, unfortunately, in this day and age, if you fucking sell your club, you sell your soul. Because the only people who are buying are American arseholes who want, hey, this franchise league's fucking neat. Wait, that's relegation. You either sell to those cunts or you fucking sell to the fucking Saudis who go, look, man, listen, all you have to do is just ignore who's falling off the building today and you can have all the fucking money in the world. And really, it's the Qataris who are bad and not us. The whole deal and how it got done was a disgrace. The Premier League knew legally they were circumspect. And that eventually it would get overturned. And it just tells you what a mad, mad world that we fucking live in now. All the other Premier League clubs objected to this sale now that we're the richest club in the fucking world. Can you imagine?
That is some talk called the kettle.
The Man City owner legitimately called the Premier Leagues and said we should have been told about this. Like, call him up yourself, you know him. So it's the whole thing's a farce. Am I happy that Saudi Arabian money has took over Newcastle? Nah, not at all, mate. But who are you selling to in this day and age? If it's not them, I mean, the last consortium deal was like Nigerian businessmen who had ties to some dodgy shit. And then before that, that was the joke at the time. They were going, those Nigerian princes are real. They're buying football clubs now. That's what people were saying on fucking time. So, mate, I don't know, mate. I long for a time when it was still the people's game, but it ain't been the people's game for so long now. How can I be angry now that it's our turn to be the cunts? It does make me question my allegiance to them. But listen, I'll enjoy it when you just see all these like mad names. And Messi ending his career at Newcastle, and everyone's in the crowd. Messi is a Geordie. All the North FC supporters are there. I'll revel in that, and I'll enjoy it in the same way I enjoyed it for the Man City people who, remember, before they got bought, they had been in fucking the lowest. Yeah, yes, mate. But so I'll enjoy all of that, but it's disgusting what's going on in sports. This sports washing stuff where you literally just get to come to the fucking river of sports and go, all this blood just comes right off, doesn't it? No, there's something wrong with it, but it's the system. So what can I do? My thoughts. Right. Okay. As a creative way of ensuring COVID. Oh no, it's the cough. Here comes the cough. As a creative way of ensuring COVID protocols are followed, rather than show your beautiful faces at the PGL Major, all of the talent group should be represented by Muppets on camera. You will be heard, and it'll be your voice, but actions and movement will be Muppetized.
Here's the thing: he has inadvertently
I know.
triggered a story that can never be
It'd
told.
never be told.
But one of the greatest behind the scenes stories of all time. But yeah, obviously we can't reference it, can we? So
Yeah, it can't. Not yet.
sadly.
Well, unless. But anyway, we're on, maybe
we almost could. That's the problem.
Yeah,
It's close enough.
Oh, it's so tantalising.
And we're some of the only people who could get away with it. We've still got the status.
I
Where,
know. Yeah, we're not for long. This may just gonna kill it, bro. I hope you've got your nest egg ready.
Oh, by the way, if you want to really get hyped for the major, I'll just tell you right now. I don't care if I never work another Counterstrike event in my life, so I'm going all out.
Yeah, it's going to be like I'll probably hang it up after that. The only event I want to work after that is I do want to do a live LAN event with Harry, Hugo, Launder, Scrawny, all of those guys.
Maybe fun ones, yeah.
He then goes on to ask, which Muppet will best represent you?
Okay. Let me think. Who did
I don't even know who the Muppets are. Are the Muppets these days the same Muppets that we...
I assume so. But my problem is I do sometimes get confused who's on Sesame Street and who's on the Muppets because it was like the same fucking people.
Did they cross over? No, they never did they?
But they're both from, it.
No, they're both from Jim Henson's workshop,
they're both from Henson. Yeah.
So,
because the problem is, I used to like fucking Ernie from Bert and Ernie, but that's Sesame Street, I'm pretty sure. What about Muppet? I didn't really like most of the Muppets because, like,
I'm looking at them here. Right, obviously you've got Miss Piggy, Kermit, Beaker.
Beaker, what's that? Fucking Sam's Muppet or something.
No, Beaker's the one with the does all the experiments for Bunsen.
I bet he was all the white powder and that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Beaker.
Beaker. Beaker and Bunsen. Rolf the dog.
Oh, that massive one with the shaggy hair and that. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, Rolf the dog. What's the name of the bear comedian? I'm just looking at the pictures and triggering childhood memories here.
Comedian, Bert Kreischer. That's pretty good. Not bad. Not bad.
Yeah, we can leave that one in.
Not bad.
What's he called? Fozzie Bear.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He goes waka 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 when he tells a joke. That guy.
Yeah.
I don't know, mate. I mean, personally, Duncan could definitely be Fozzie Bear, like for sure, like because the hits just keep on coming with him. Like he fucking just keeps on saying stuff. But yeah, I mean, for me,
one of the obvious one, aren't we? Just those old guys.
Consoles there. I always wanted to be Animal growing up.
Okay, the drummer.
I always thought Animal was the coolest Muppet of them all, and he couldn't fucking say a word. He couldn't talk. He just made noises and hit his drum kit. But he had life figured out, you know. But now, the most chill guy is Rolf, for sure. Rolf the dog. Like, he was never in any dramas, was he? Like, Kermit and Miss Piggy were always fighting and feuding, and Gonzo was like some mad, like, cuckold in that, like...
It was weird,
yeah. Like... This is how mad cartoons cartoons and like children's entertainment were when you were a kid. They literally wrote a story where it was like some sort of mad three-way sex triangle between a pig, a frog, and Gonzo, who literally doesn't even know what species he is. Like, that was just what you can't judge boomers like us. We didn't get the cartoons that like were just normal. We had all mad subtext and shit, didn't we? So. No, I'll take Rolf. I think I'm a chill guy in general, and Rolf has some gravitas to him. And so I'm a scratch.
Like I said, I don't think I care about the Muppets, so I just declined to care for this question. I gave you a few chances.
Yeah. Otarian, what is the hardest hit you've ever received?
This could be metaphorical. It's not just actually like hit to the body.
I'm going to answer it like it was a physical one.
I'll just say this. The problem is, the actual hardest one, I wouldn't be able to remember, would I? If you just get like the shit kicked out, you don't exactly, it's not like fucking Matrix. Oh, he's kicking me here, and then this, that was harder. Like, you're just getting your head smashed in at you. So, unfortunately, I probably don't remember the real answer.
So, I remember mine specific. I went back to visit Wales when I was working up north, and we were having like a fucking reunion of all us dickheads that went to uni. So, we went back to where the uni was. And we were just on the lash non-stop. I mean, it was fucking mental. And so much so, we actually drank the Union bar out of like cider and WKD blues. All of that was gone. Like we just descended on it like locusts, and we were just fucked up non-stop, right? And anyway, I knew a guy down there who had got himself into a little bit of trouble. Won't talk too much about it, but he'd upset a very prominent Welsh family that had a lot of members that were all fucking hard boys. And so we were up at a nightclub, well, use that term loosely, a barn that was open late that had alcohol and fairy lights in it. We were up drinking. It was getting towards the end of the tour anyway, you know. I was heading back up in the next couple of days. And basically, the bouncers who we knew, the doorman, came over to us and said, fucking hell, they're all coming up in a van to get your mate Paul. Like, they're going to fucking smash his head in. Like, and I'm like, no. And they see the other boys who we were drinking with the whole time, they're not there. It's just me and this guy, Paul. Me and Paul, historically, we've knocked 7 shades of shit out of each other in the past. It's not like we're tight mates. We just knew each other, and we'd had stand-up physical fights when we were both arseholes, because I was a cunt back then. So, anyway, I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, this is definitely the time you leave. But, mate, I heard the commotion outside. There was about 8 people there, including this guy who was about 400 fucking pounds with just roided neck starts at his temples, like. And so I said, and Paul's like a Cockney lad. And he was like, you get a fuck off, are you then? And he's laughing because he's like, he knows he's going to get the shit kicked out of him. And I said, tell you what, mate, fuck it. I'll have a go. Let's do it. Let's roll back the years. So this family, I mean, they're pushing past the fucking doorman. It's a fucking scene. And this fucking, mecha neck guy comes in. And he's like the fucking cave troll. Like from fucking Lord of the Rings. He's just come through the door. And I've gone, right, here we are then. Here we are. And I've given a few little Swifties to a couple of little cunts coming out like that, like but just the small ones, the rattlings of the family, They don't send the best all the time, They just want to be there for the stories or whatever. So just gone like bap, give a few digs here and then. This cave troll hit me so fucking flush, mate, under my chin. Right? I don't remember the rest of the fight, right? But after we'd got them out and the police had turned up, and because I knew the doorman, I knew the people who ran the club, me and Paul had just sat there bleeding, drinking a fucking after-hours beer. And I can hear the security boys all laughing. And I went, oh, what's that? And he said, come in the back. And they had to get the security tapes out for the police, so they were running them back. And they said, fucking hell, Rich, look at this. And I swear, this cunt lifted me off my feet with an uppercut. Like, you just see me, it's like there's wires, like I'm in one of them, movies, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I've just got oh, she's just absolutely done me, because I got hit by the cave troll, so I don't even remember any of that. That was a CTE maker. Apparently, I was watching me on the thing. I got back up and was like, blundering, sleeping on people and stuff. But yeah, I don't remember it, mate. It was fucking lights out for about 2 minutes afterwards.
That's also what I've found as well, is any really hard blow to the head. That's why I know CTE is legit. It deletes your memory forever. Yeah. It never comes back. It's not like, you get it in 2 days.
It's literally from the moment his fist hit my face to until we're drinking at the bar, essentially, after the police have turned up. There's nothing, mate.
The way I know that movies have ruined the fucking brains of normal people is, listen, if you have never been in bar fights, don't even try and fight one person. That person probably wreck you. It's people who actually believe shit from movies, which they're going to sort of fight 4 people. You have no chance. Literally, it's just a question of when they grab you. And by the way, when they grab you, the worst feeling in the world is where it's like a fucking movie and they're doing that, and then one guy's cracking. You can't do anything. You can't like you would in a movie. No, but what I would do is I'd flip my legs up.
Yeah, exactly. I'd do some judo.
You'd just be going, fuck, how do I survive this?
Yes, like fuck.
I know.
I'll give them I'll give them the old fucking Richie Shuffle. Those cunts coming in, crack, right to the jaw. But that was it, mate. I dropped the small ones, and then the cave troll just took me out. Just took care of me. I had to go back to work as well. My face was all fucked up, cuts on the eyes, all mangled, bleeding. What happened then? I was like, I was on a rugby tour. Fucking straight lie about it, madness. Anyway, there you go. You got one?
No. Like I say, unfortunately, I think the good ones are deleted, unfortunately. We'll never know.
Carve. Here we are. Hello, meine Liebe. It's me, your good friend from ESL, the flying DJ. People often ask me, you have such an interesting name. Does it encapsulate the globe-trotting superstar lifestyle only a virtual monopoly can give you? Well, it's actually a bit of an inside joke. Flying was given to me by my colleagues, as it is short for fucking lying. But there is no swearing, of course, at ESL. The DJ part, well, everyone knows we are the masters of spin. Anyway, we hope you've been enjoying ESL's latest attempts to save North American CSGO by showing all of these wonderful EU games at 2 a.m. European time, so our American audience can enjoy some high-level competition. Anyways, must go. It's sausage night at the ESL canteen. And despite our partner teams and employees flexing on a lack of diversity for PGL, everyone knows ESL operates the best sausage fest in the business. Choose.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Nice.
Yep,
By the way,
I've done it again.
If people don't know, it's not really even a joke. Like, because that guy is so stereotypically German, he actually did create, unironically, one of our favourite moments of all time. I think we even probably did talk about By the Numbers. It was ages ago. It was the one where there was that event where basically someone in the event actually did complain on Twitter, like, oh, something happened with, like, I can't remember if it's the security or something like that.
Yeah.
And they were sort of like, oh, there was a problem. And the flying DJ came in and was like, oh, well, we'll get that sorted. And then an obvious troll account, Rich, like literally like one of those like kids who just says like ratio, just goes, yeah, and I cleaned the toilets and I didn't get paid yet. Yeah. And instead of just going like, it does just seem legit, he just answered it like it was PR, and he goes, well, you know, we don't usually handle, sanitation or like.
No, I was trying to explain this to Sam last episode.
So
how mental it was,
I know. It's one of the all-time funniest, like, unintentional Odins I've ever seen. It's like, it's a fucking troll, you moron. Obviously, the guy who cleaned the toilet isn't tweeting at you, is he? Why the fuck is that money?
I know. Where's my money, person who runs esports?
I know.
Anyway, Zumba, what was your favourite part of the Coca-Cola ad? That's easy. When it fucking ended. What was it? It was an affront to my brain.
Coca-Cola.
Mate, I'll link it you after the show if you ain't seen it. Basically, they did this Coca-Cola ad, right? To show how, and it's called One Coke Away, about how the world's all interconnected and we can learn from it from esports, right? And the commercial is Raid Shadow Legends being played as an esport, essentially. It looks like that, World of Warcraft, Blizzard, animations. And basically what happens is, right, the orc is weak. It's been battered, like, and he's looking around the battlefield and other orcs are down. But one of the knights that he's been battling against is like on the floor, like, all sprawled out. And then the esports athlete who's controlling the orc has a drink of Coke and goes, and then like the power bar, the power bar starts going up in the game because that's how it works. But then instead of going over and taking the axe and doming the knight and claiming the trophy, picks him up and then does the end of Rocky 4, and then it cuts.
It makes no sense in an esports context whatsoever.
I did it on stream. Okay. I've gone over it. But anyway, forget that for a moment. Okay. Then what happens is it then cuts to virtual streamers with fake Twitch chat and just fake internet shit all around the world. People go, wow, I can't believe what I'm seeing. I can't believe what I'm seeing. And then it cuts to like news stations. I know it'll kill you when you watch
breaking
it.
News. Breaking news.
Breaking news. Beep, 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 beep. And the intimation is that by drinking Coke and match fixing the outcome of this esports tournament, they have stopped wars in the world. We've achieved global peace through the medium of esports. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen. It is literally How Do You Do, Fellow Kids, the commercial. It's fucking mental.
Oh, it sounds like neoliberalism nightmare version 10 or whatever. Like, please, companies, please let's do this.
None of it makes any sense. So you've got to watch that. Hope that answers your question too, but yeah, it was awful. Jerky's Minion, any good horror recommendations as it's spooky October?
Oh, you'll have loads for this, I'm sure. Let's do some obscure ones, though, because they'll know the
different ones. Exactly. That's what I mean. I'm trying to think. The best thing to do is pull ones that I've seen recently that I liked. These recommendations, because that's hard, because a lot of them, they get so close to being genuinely good and then they sort of fall at the last hurdle.
Right.
I also hate the idea now that we're doing it's one thing if your movie is so cleverly structured and carefully structured that it rewards on repeat viewings because you pick up on things. It's another thing when you deliberately throw in a twist that's so ridiculous that you sort of go, and if you'd watched it, you would have seen it all along. You couldn't possibly have got the clue. And I'm not talking like Fight Club, where it's very obvious what's going on. Well, not obvious, but, you can put it together.
Yes.
But like this Hereditary just throws you for such a loop. It's brilliant up to that point, and then it's like, it's about demon cultists. And you're like, oh, wait, hang on a minute. And then you watch it, and it was. I'll tell you one that I know will be good for Jerky because I know Jerky. And one of the I watched a lot of movies lately. I'm thinking about doing a series of giving people movie recommendations that address certain like mindsets. So like if you're anxious, watch this movie, this kind of thing. Because I haven't seen anyone do that before. And I know obviously Jerky's had a tough time lately. So I'll tell you what. It's technically a horror movie. It squeezes under the door. If you've not seen it yet, one of the best films for anyone who's feeling depressed and so is The Grey with Liam Neeson.
Oh, okay, the one about a wolf or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, it's about being hunted down by a pack of wolves after a plane crash out in the tundra, and it's got a particular tone to it because obviously we know what Liam Neeson was going through with the death of his wife in real life, and the whole film is an allegory for dealing with depression. And I won't do a 40-minute lecture about it now because we're running late. But if you watch that movie, it's about overcoming that mentally, and it's one of those underrated movies that when you view it through that lens, it becomes something special. I think it transforms the whole movie because you can just watch it as it's a guy in a plane crash and they're being hunted down by wolves and he has to go and battle the alpha male and they get picked off one by one. It holds up just like that. But if you understand what the scriptwriter was essentially sort of trying to say, and another one actually, here's another one. What's it called? Is it Farewell the Night or whatever? I can't remember what it's called. It's a French one. Is it Farewell to the Night? No, I don't think it is. It's got something like that. Something to the Night. Fuck, I can't remember the name of
Any
it.
famous actor in it or something that they can
No,
look up?
that's the best thing about it.
Right, it's unknown or something. I see.
And it sets up the standard zombie premise that was set up by Dawn of the Dead. Basically, it's set in France, and he's at a party, but it's not a party for him. He's getting the last of his stuff. He's breaking up with his girlfriend, and then a zombie apocalypse breaks out. He doesn't know. He falls asleep at the party, wakes up, sees all people lying around, and he's like, "What's going on here?" But they're all zombified. And what's really night eats the world. That's it. And what's fucking really creepy about it, mate, is the zombies don't make noise. They're not like screeching or screaming or even hissing. They're totally silent. All you can hear is the clacking of teeth when they're trying to bite you and stuff. And he's stuck in France, right? And obviously, no one's prepped for any of this shit. He can't get out of this house, and he's just living this miserable existence of just survival. He's like, he has to sneak out, go into rooms to get enough food, and he's catching rainwater on the roof. This is the ultimate movie for breakups because that's what it's all about. He's trapped in the sort of like post-life existence of breaking up with a long-term partner. That's what him being shackled to the house represents, and the memories of that relationship are each of the rooms. And eventually, without ruining the ending, it's got a real positive, upbeat kind of feel that even in the face of Armageddon, there are good moments. But it gets very dark. And not a lot of people have seen it. If you've ever gone through a bad breakup, though, Night Eats the World it'll resonate with you for real. It's a great film, I think, really underrated.
I've got a few I thought up.
Yep.
So I'm going to go across the gamut here. A couple of them actually might be obscure. Depends how much you're in about. One's really obscure, one's semi, and then one's actually a famous Hollywood movie. But I think these are good recommendations for this group. So the obscure one is a movie called Session 9, and the director is the guy who did The Machinist. And basically, even though it's got, this will sound bad, it's got David Caruso in it, but he's actually not bad. That's actually how you know the movie's good. Essentially, it's a pure psychological horror. I won't give you any spoilers on it. Just check it out if you want. Because I don't really like more like the gore shit. With that said, though, one of my other recommendations, moving a little bit more into, you might know this is an indie movie, is actually a movie Richard recommended me a few years ago. And that's the movie Mandy by the guy who did Beyond the Black Rainbow. Again, I won't give you any spoilers, but it's just one of those movies. It's just a fucking full-on experience. Like, soundtrack is mega. The way it's lit and shot is really interesting. It's also, another disclaimer, it's got Nicolas Cage in, but this is the good Nicolas Cage. Yes. This is the fucking Dr. Jekyll motherfucker that shows up every now and then. And then the last one is going to be, it's an old school movie, so the Zoomers might not know it, but everyone who otherwise knows classic cinema will. Jacob's Ladder. Again, I won't give any spoilers, but it's just a great example. By the way, it's another great movie where they use like sort of prosthetics instead of computer graphics, but it does an amazing job. Essentially, the sort of hellscape they set up in this movie is they do a really good job with it. So I think these are three movies. Again, they're all mainly like psychological bent, but that's more the kind of horror I like.
Yeah. Hope that serves your purposes, Jerky. Reykjavik on Steam. A moment of silence for the greatest shot misser of the last great Danish talent, Yugi, for he shall surely miss. He's finally moved over to Valorant, and I think our response to that was just a fucking jaw-breaking yawn, right? I mean, not really much to talk about there, but yes, I'll pull one out for him. First off, if you had to pick a dark horse for the major, like when you said Cloud9 had a chance, an outside chance to win A-League Atlanta, who would it be? I'm in NIP. I'm going in on that. So, did you have a different one to me, mate?
The problem is, to me, I'm assuming we're like, the problem with this one is like, obviously teams like NIP from ranking, like again, they're so close to the top. It's like they are dark horses, but they're not also like complete outsiders. To me, the two that I feel like have the best chance, I have three names, but I'll just pick. Let me think. I'll just make myself pick one. Let me think which one I pick. Because the three that I'm thinking of go like this. Again, it's debatable how much is dark. Like Vitality is obviously one that could do it. They've got the pieces. I actually think Virtus Pro is a bit underrated. I think they could maybe do it when it's LAN. And then the other one is, it sounds like an outside one, but just they have the pieces, Team Liquid. So if I had to pick out the three, realistically, let me think. I'll just say to make it a legit, I'll say I'll take Virtus Pro, just I know no one else will. Like other people might have Vitality. I'll take Virtus Pro. I actually think on LAN they could be better than they have been online. They've got some pretty good players. I think they've got an outside crack at doing it. There you go.
Okay, good. And then this is the last one. The Bear. What is your favourite Belgian beer between Delirium, Golden Drac, or Duvel? Well, that's fucking hard, that. Because I was a big Duvel guy. I used to love that. And we used to drink in this bar in Borough where they sold Duvel. This shit was fucking lethal because Duvel's fucking strong gear, you know. We used to do the Duvel challenge, you know, you fucking smash in, 10 of them. So, yeah, I really, really like Duvel, but I've had the other two, and so I like Duvel, and then I had Golden Drac. I can't even remember when I had that. I might have been in Belgium direct. I was like, fucking hell, this is good. But Delirium is fucking fly as fuck. It's just you can't get it anywhere. So, probably Delirium's the best beer of the three for me. I know you don't even drink beer, do you?
I don't drink beer, so I never drink any of those. And the joke is I live in Netherlands, so I'm pretty sure I could probably get all of them just anywhere I want, but I choose not to. Yeah. That's right. Get fucked.
And on that note, let's end the show, shall we? Yes, that was the episode of By the Numbers. So shout out to our sponsors, of course, NordVPN. Go to nordvpn.com/RLS to get yourself 74% off the VPN that I personally use. And remember, they don't store your data. You can go and check their audits on their website for that. And of course, a SteelSeries. Make sure you get 10% off SteelSeries hardware. It's anything in the shop, guys. It's not just the Prime range, the range that's specifically designed for esports, although that's what I'm using because it's rad as fuck. You can get 10% off anything. All you have to do is follow the link in the Nightbot, follow the link on the Twitch page, or type !SteelSeries now. Follow that link. Put in my name with no space, Richard Lewis, 10% off anything that you want. Be sure to take advantage of that while you can. And of course, shout out to our patrons, $100 patrons, Jerky's Minion, Benakagi, Carv, Cathal, Chris, J-Dubs, Marcus Kiumpar, Tobias Bernasconi, and Will the Weed Wrangler. And our $50 patrons, Adam Ox, Alex C, A-Rammer, BP420, Canon Pasito, CMAC1991, Dancer Master, Echo, Fursock, Frankie, Goody Woody, Gern Gaia, J-Ray, Judas, Miss Alcoholic, Nolan, Otarian, Reykjavik on Steam, Sard Sawar, The Bear, BTC Cash Podcast, Tim Frost, Lonnie, Watchdog, Zumba, and Zarathenia. That was By the Numbers. We'll be able to squeeze in another episode before the major, so keep an eye out for it. And until then, take care of yourselves.